Today, we're going to be taking a look at some of the FNAF fan games that completely raised the standard for the entire community. From groundbreaking ideas to incredible polish and unforgettable experiences, these are the games that inspired countless developers to aim even higher. Some of these forever changed what people expected from a FNAF fan game, so let's dive into them. Five Nights at Freddy's games don't scare me. Even the jump scares never typically get me to scream, shout, quiver in my boots, and defecate my britches. However, the game I'll be covering today did. Not only that, but this game, this masterpiece, is probably one of, if not the coolest Five Nights at Freddy's fan game I've ever played. Today, I'll be covering their return to Bloody Nights. Released in 2023 on Game Jolt by Kazovsky, it serves as a prequel to the official Five Nights at Freddy's series, taking place before the events of Five Nights at Freddy's 2. So you already know this game is about to be packed to the brim with lore, and after hearing that, I really begin to quiver in fear, because covering lore makes me want to drop cheeks on my desk and quake my entire house. I personally care much more about gameplay. Can't enjoy the story if the game itself is worse than shitting in a public school bathroom. So let's jump right into the return to Bloody Nights. I'm sure I won't lose my mind, even a little bit. Starting up the game, we're greeted to an opening cutscene, where we can see Spring Bonnie playing a tune and getting his jiggy on. We appear to be inside a Freddy costume, and given when this game is taking place, I can only assume that this is either a Golden Freddy suit or a Fredbear suit. Looking around in the suit, I noticed literally Satan chilling in the darkness. Sup, Satan?
Hi.
And shortly thereafter, we're thrown into the menu. The return to Bloody Nights has the typical Five Nights formula, with a difficult sixth night at the end. Split up into days of the week, it gives it a bit more character, which also makes sense. When a girl asks you what day it is, you don't say the fourth day, you say Thursday like a normal person. But all you little freak geeks probably respond by instantly jeebing in your pants because a woman has never spoken to you before because you're chronically online. Don't lie. We all are. Nothing to be embarrassed about. Jumping into night one, we first have to wait for a phone call to play out between Henry and William. Since this takes place before the official games, it can only be assumed that at this point in time, Henry already had his restaurant, and William was currently working on his own. Before every night, we get a phone call just like this. Henry checks up on William's progress with the animatronics. William talks and makes me incredibly uncomfortable. Seriously, the voice actors in this game did an amazing job of playing the parts. Oh, and I can't forget my favorite part, getting to hear Henry tell William that safety comes first about 800 times per phone call.
I want to make sure that our establishments are safe for everyone who comes through our doors. I still want you to take your time with the project. Rushing things could lead to mistakes.
But I do need to move quickly if we're going to open in time.
I know, but please keep safety in mind, above all else.
Honestly, if I was William and I had to hear Henry tell me the same thing a million times, I probably would have killed those kids too. Moving into the office, we get to listen to yet another phone call. Holy shit, I'm gonna tear my pubes out. I know this game is more focused on lore, but holy shit, I downloaded the game to play it. If I wanted a story, I'd get a visual novel. In all honesty though, the in-office phone calls are actually also great. Again, the voice actor did an amazing job playing the part. He tells us about the restaurant, whatever the fuck. Tell me about the robots, bro. That's what I'm interested in. Night 1 introduces Spring Bonnie. I'm sure you could have guessed. This game takes place in Fredbear's family diner. We play as a guy named Scott, which I might add is probably the whitest name of all time. Spring Bonnie does exactly what you think he does. Starts on the show stage, shimmies around the cameras like he just sprayed some cologne in the air, and brings it around town to your right side office door. It's at this point where I should establish how the doors work in this game. You'll notice that there are no lights. However, you do have a flashlight, so you can flash that puppy into the doorways to see what's there. However, you'll notice that your flashlight doesn't illuminate the entire doorway, so you'll have to move your flashlight around to actually see the full picture. It's also because of this that we get my favorite part of this entire game. Oh my fucking god! Holy shit! Oh my god, that was fucking cool as shit! Oh my god, bro. Holy shit, that was awesome. The moment I saw this, I thought to myself, yep, for sure. This game's getting a white video. The fear in my voice in that clip was genuine. I know a lot of creators on this site like to fake and hype up their reactions because it makes good content, but if you watch my second channel, Dexter Black, you'd know that all of my reactions are real, so not often will you catch me getting scared like that. But hot damn was this cool. As I'm sure you could guess, when you see Spring Bonnie in the doorway geeked out of his mind, you need to close the door and wait for a sound cue letting you know he's left. With only one animatronic, I'm sure you could guess that this night is incredibly easy, so let's move on to night 2. Night 2 introduces Fredbear. He acts the same way as Spring Bonnie, except he attacks the left door rather than the right. Since that's pretty boring, let's talk about the cameras and why I think this game does animatronic movement correctly compared to other games. Something I've noticed in a lot of FNAF games is that characters have a path. No shit, that's how it's always been. But you'll notice in most games that this path is very basic. For example, I move from camera 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 and then arrive at your door. Very basic. This game and a few others do something really cool. Rather than just appearing in one camera and teleporting to another, the characters in the Return to Bloody Nights will instead have multiple phases on each camera, kind of like Foxy from Five Nights at Freddy's 1, wherein, if you're watching the cameras, you will see Spring Bonnie, for example, go from the show stage to standing off of the show stage, and then he'll transfer to another camera, and in most cases, each character has at least 2 phases on each camera that they enter, which really gives a feeling of realism to the game, as it seems like you actually get to see the characters walking around rather than just teleporting from camera to camera like most Five Nights at Freddy's games. Another game that pulls this off really well is A Bite at Freddy's, a FNAF fan game I've covered on this channel, and you can watch my review of it after you finish this one. It's a fantastic video if I do say so myself, which I do. Anyways, on to Wednesday, which introduces 3 new threats, those threats being, hold on a second, 3? 3 new threats in one night? Did I read that right? Hold on, let me check. Oh my god. Yeah, that's right. 3 new animatronics become active on this night. God damn. Talk about going from 1 to 100 in a fraction of a second, good lord. Well, let's start going over them, shall we? Starting with the least infuriating of the 3, we have the puppet. An area of your office I have yet to mention is the prize corner, which is directly behind you. Here, you will be able to see prizes. Who would have thought? This is also where you can see a bunch of fun references like Sonic, FNAF, Cuphead, and a bunch more. I had a lot of fun pointing out as many references as I could while playing, which you can see in my full playthrough on my second channel, Dexter Black. The puppet has a chance to appear at any time throughout the night behind you in the prize corner. It doesn't move through the cameras, so there's no way to predict when it's going to attack. However, thankfully, it does play a sound cue that lets you know it has appeared behind you, telling you to get off that computer call and kiss it on its hot mouth. When you hear this bell jingling sound cue, you have to quickly whip around and find it in one of 3 locations with your flashlight. Once you find it, it'll quickly hide away like a bitch and you're free to continue. The puppet is really never a problem throughout the nights, acting more of an annoying distraction than a real threat. But now, I get the misfortune of talking about the other 2 threats that this night places in my anus. So let's cover the spawn camping dickhead Fredbear 2.0. Fredbear 2.0 doesn't appear on the cameras. Instead, he appears right outside of your right door. That's where he starts. Yeah, he begins the night already outside of your door. And that's the furthest away he'll ever get from you. Isn't that just the worst thing you've ever heard in your life? I think I'd rather be diagnosed with butthole cancer. Fredbear 2.0 has multiple phases before his actual attack. You'll have to constantly flash your light in the left doorway to check his progress, which takes your attention away from a crucial character you need to watch on the cameras, whom I will talk about in a moment. As he gets closer and closer, you'll get to hear him talking right in your fucking ear, which is a pain in the ass because I'm trying to listen for movements and bell jingling at the same time. So I'd really appreciate it if you'd hop off my cock. When Fredbear 2.0 gets to your door, he will crouch down to try to get in, which, by the way, looks crazy cool. I love animations like this in FNAF games. It adds so much life to them. Something you'll notice about Fredbear 2.0 in comparison to the other animatronics that attack your doors is that he appears to linger at them for much longer than the others. You wouldn't be crazy for thinking that either, because he does. When Fredbear 2.0 crouches down, he won't instantly enter your office like Fredbear and Spring Bonnie do. Instead, he'll wait about 8 seconds before actually attacking you, giving you time to check on the puppet and Mr. Dickhole, who I'll be covering next. That may sound like a nice gesture. Aw, he's giving me time to worry about my other problems. What an emotionally intelligent guy. No, this guy is a dick. Something I should mention is that there is no power system. However, there is generator heat. What causes the generator to go up? That's right, using your doors. No matter how much you think you're going to be able to consistently time out when Fredbear 2.0 is going to attack, I promise you that you'll get it wrong a few times. And because you know that you're going to get it wrong, you'll probably feel inclined to play it safe and close it sooner than you technically need to. And this is where he gets you. Because even if you close the door early, his timer still has to count all the way down before he attacks, leaving you with your generator heat increasing while that dickhead just stands there like a dunce for half a century. On later nights, you'll be getting attacked pretty frequently, so having this guy waste even a few seconds with your door closed can be the cause of a run to end later down the line. Alright, I can't put it off any longer. I need to talk about the most infuriating character in this entire game. Spring Bonnie 2.0. Spring Bonnie 2.0 acts much like the original, slowly creeping his way through your cameras until he can reach your office. But there's something interesting to note about him. While he's on the cameras, you can see that he's covering his face often, almost like he's playing hide and seek. And the reason for that? It's because he literally is playing hide and seek. When his robot AI was being designed, they made a hide-and-seek function that was meant to be used to play with the kids, but instead it's being used to play with my ass like a bongo drum. That doesn't sound too bad, Dexter. I think you're overreacting. No. Bullshit. No, I'm not. Unlike Spring Bonnie, Spring Bitch 2.0 doesn't appear in your doorway. Instead, he'll just pile drive in. So the key is to watch the final camera he appears on. He has 3 phases in this long hallway, the final of which has him close up and personal to the camera. Once you see him there, he will run out of frame, and you need to quickly close the right door before he busts in and then busts in you. Wait! Before you type in the comments how I'm bad and that this isn't a hard mechanic at all, ooh, it's basically just Foxy, Dexter, you little bitch boy. Shut the hell up. That's what I thought at first too. However, there's one tiny little tweak that makes him worse than a hangnail that just keeps peeling your skin back the longer you pull on it. Unlike Foxy, who, when you look at him in the hall, his animation starts playing and then you close the door and the cycle continues. Simple. Nope. Not Spring Bussy 2.0. He's different. When you look at him on the cameras in his final phase, he won't immediately play his animation like Foxy does. Instead, he's kinda like Fredbear 2.0 in a way, where he has a timer for when he'll actually attack, bringing up the same issue as Fredbear 2.0, where you'll probably end up closing the door earlier than you need to and building up your generator heat. Mixing these two characters together is gruesome. Introducing them both at the same time, on top of another character that demands your attention consistently, downright vile. I'd rather stick my willy in the exhaust pipe of a running motorcycle than deal with these two douchebags ever again in my life. There is one final threat I have yet to mention, but because of the strategy I used to beat this game, I actually never encountered them, that threat being the Golden Cupcake. According to the wiki, he only appears on the 3rd night. Amazing! Fuck 3 threats introduced at the same time, why not 4? He has a chance to appear on any camera, just acting as a visual annoyance. To get him to move, just switch to another camera and he'll disappear. I'm guessing because my strategy only had me using 1 camera throughout the entire night, it never gave him a chance to spawn. I'm not totally sure, and again, the wiki says he's only active on night 3. Why not nights 4, 5, and 6? I don't really know. This character seems like a weird inclusion. Let me know in the comments if you know more about this little guy. Hey there, Future Dexter here, coming in to inform you with some much needed corrections for something I mentioned earlier. I made a whole big point about introducing Fredbear 2.0 and Spring Bonnie 2.0 at the same time. Apparently I'm retarded. Fredbear 2.0 isn't introduced until Thursday night. I apologize. I don't know how I got that so incredibly wrong. I probably just remembered how ass I thought that duo was together and misremembered them being introduced at the same time. I don't know. Again, I apologize. Let's get back to the goon session. The remainder of the nights are just more difficult variations of each other. No new characters are introduced. Something crazy you'll notice, however, is the incredible spike in difficulty after Wednesday. Who would have thought being bombarded by AIDS can do a real number on you? This is actually the most common criticism I've seen of this game. The difficulty curve isn't a curve, it's a steep cliff that you're at the bottom of. I recognize why people feel this way, but guys, I was able to beat it. You know, the guy that's actually probably the worst FNAF player of all time. If I did it, you can do it. I promise. Oh, something I decided to not talk about was what happens after each night. Every time you complete a night, we're put into a cutscene where Scott, which again is our character, is scanning the animatronics for paranormal activity. I'm not sure what the name of the device he's using is, but this is what he's doing. I know that because I know how to use context clues. Also because the wiki told me that's what he's doing here. Remember those phone calls I talked about at the beginning of the video? If I want to cover the lore, it's important I talk about those phone calls a bit more. I know. Ugh, Dexter's talking about the lore in a game. He's really bad at that. He's only funny when he's talking about the gameplay. I know, trust me. I'm gonna try my best though, because the story in this game is honestly really, really cool, and I want to share it with you all. I don't want to be like some other game reviewers who tell you to just play the game for yourself to learn more. You're watching reviews to get a review. If you wanted to play the game, you'd just do that. You don't need me telling you to go play it. Night 2's phone call reveals that William has gotten a divorce, and apparently some of the workers are concerned that he's drowning himself in work. Henry tells him that safety comes first. Thank you, Henry. I would have never fucking guessed. Wednesday's call, William begins to brag about his new child-friendly animatronics. These animatronics he's talking about are Fredbear 2.0 and Spring Bastard 2.0. William reveals he's been studying child psychology. Uh-oh. In this day and age, there's only one direction this could be going. Just kidding. This isn't Dormitibus. It's not about to get weird. Afton claims his divorce is taking a toll on his mental health, but he's focusing on work to distract himself. Henry opens up about his feelings like a man never should. Some bullshit about how his only child Charlotte means so much to him, blah blah. Who cares, bro? I'm building fucking robots. That's way cooler than your lame-ass kid who can't even wipe her own ass properly. Thursday's phone call reveals that William wants to distance himself from his two sons and focus more on Elizabeth. I also noticed in this phone call that Afton seems a lot more passive-aggressive. Looking back on it now, that probably has something to do with his mental health. But while I was playing, I was rooting for William during these calls because of how sick and tired I was of Henry mentioning safety for the 200th time in a row. Additionally, on Thursday night, we learned that the diner is being shut down due to the disappearance of 6 children. I wonder who could have done that. Friday's phone call gets dark. Henry's daughter fucking died. RIP! Afton doesn't really seem to care. I'm with you there, William. Afton mentions he has to do something, and Henry tries to tell him to not do anything that might have negative consequences. William brushes this off as it seems he's too far gone. I'm assuming that these things that need to be done are the killing of the 6 kids. It's then around this time that William stuffs one of the kids, Cassidy McKay, into the Fredbear 2.0 suit and leaves her to rot inside Fredbear's family diner. Isn't it crazy how fucked up FNAF games are? I often forget how disturbing the actual story is when I'm making videos about these games. After the completion of Night 4, Scott scans Fredbear 2.0, and unlike the other characters scanned previously, the machine we have starts to go nuts when scanning Fredbear 2.0, likely because of the body of Cassidy inside. After the completion of Night 5, we get a monologue from William, explaining how he killed the kids and framed Henry.
It has been many years since the incident that changed everything. I have done unforgivable things since then. The missing children. It was all my doing.
We get the reveal of Circus Baby and hear about Elizabeth getting ganked by her. After the completion of Saturday, we get a cutscene of who I can only assume is Elizabeth, talking about needing to guide the other victims. I'm assuming Elizabeth because of how Baby guides throughout Sister Location, although I could be wrong on who this is. Finally, if you complete this game's max mode, you get one final cutscene, displaying William dying in the Spring Bonnie 2.0 suit, which is in 2D rather than 3D like the rest of the game for some unknown reason. And with that, that's all the Return to Bloody Nights has to offer as far as I'm aware. Overall, I really liked this game, but I can understand why a lot of people don't. Sure, it looks really pretty and the story is amazing, having us play as the phone guy from FNAF 1 and 2, but I think this game focuses too much on story and not enough on gameplay. Sure, the Game Jolt page does say it's primarily about the story, but I can still understand why people dislike the gameplay loop for being too repetitive and difficult, even though that's how most FNAF games end up panning out. I'm pretty sure the community liked Post Shift 2 more, which that game is just brutally difficult and confusing for the sake of being brutally difficult and confusing. So I guess that tells you where the community really is, where some appreciate Post Shift 2 over this game in terms of gameplay, which is wild, I will add. I've covered several overwhelming FNAF games on my channel before, and I'm sure I'll cover many more in the future. Today is no different. I've recently stumbled across a fan game dev by the name of Solar Neon, responsible for Late Shift at Nintendo World, which is in a video I've made recently with a very good song along with it. Well, call me surprised when I found out that Solar has actually been working on an entire series of FNAF games, and that 2 of the 6 of them have already been released. Knowing that, I couldn't help myself but get sucked right in, and now I'm going to force you to be sucked in as well. Today, we're going to be talking about Swing Shift at Farley's, a FNAF fan game with some of the darkest and most sinister storytelling I've ever seen. Before we start talking about the actual gameplay loop this game has to offer, I first want to talk about the stylistic choices of this game. Something I noticed is that Swing Shift at Farley's really feels like FNAF 1. A lot of games try to replicate the style and feel of FNAF 1, but I honestly don't think many are capable of doing it. Farley's is definitely one of them. The overall look and feel of the game really reminds me of the original Five Nights at Freddy's, which makes the game feel nostalgic. I love it. Anyways, moving on to talking about Night 1. There is plenty to talk about. Look at the length of the video. Again, the person that made this game also made Late Shift at Nintendo World, so you know we're about to see some of the most creative shit you've ever seen in your entire life. To start, there are a lot of places you're able to move, but before we go down the list talking about them, describing the doors is very important. Swing Shift at Farley's doesn't use a typical power system, which I love. It makes my dick not feel like it's on fire. However, the doors do have their own type of power system involved. When a door is closed, the door's fuse will quickly decrease. If it empties completely, then obviously the door will be forced open. So that bodes the question, what the fuck are we going to do about that? Very epic answer, I will say, and this brings up probably my favorite mechanic. As I said, there are multiple rooms you can go to from the office. Turning to the left door, you can turn once more and go to some weird back room area. I think this is a hallway. Then, turning once more, you can go to a storage room. Inside of this storage room, you can grab a new fuse. But of course, it's not just as simple as grabbing the fuse, as there is a minigame you have to complete first. A bar will appear at the bottom of your screen, and an arrow will slide back and forth. You have to time and click when the arrow is in the middle of the bar 3 times in a row for you to be able to pull out the fuse. I guess we have to really put our backs into picking up this fuse that probably weighs as much as all of the food in your mom's fridge combined. Get it? Because a fuse is very light, and your mom's fridge is empty because she ate it all? Yeah, you got it. Directly behind you while looking at the camera monitor is where your fuse box is located. You can remove an empty fuse and replace it with a new one you grabbed. However, the fuse has to be empty before you can replace it. So this will lead to you having to forcefully make your door run out of power at times. But that will make more sense once we start talking about the actual threats this night introduces. Speaking of which, let's do that now. Night 1 only introduces 2 threats. However, they both go on to serve a very important purpose. So let's talk about Basil first. Basil is this weird fucking dog thing. His goal is to attack your left door. He will make his way through the cameras and eventually make it to your door. However, something interesting you'll notice about Basil and your hallways, for that matter, is that they have no lights. So you won't actually be able to see Basil at your door, nor does he make a sound cue informing you he's there. So that poses the question, how are you supposed to know he's there? Something about Basil, and every animatronic in this game, is that unlike characters from some other FNAF games, they will never move backwards. So once Basil gets to his final camera before attacking, once he leaves that camera, you know for a fact he's at your door and you need to close it. This leads to you needing to constantly watch the cameras to track the characters, something I've noticed a lot of other FNAF games are unable to do without adding a music box or finding them on the cameras mechanic. See, fellow game devs, this game is proof that you can find an interesting way to use the cameras that isn't those two things. Basil will bang on the door when he leaves so you can open it again. In general, one fuse usually lasts about 2 attacks from characters before you should let it run out and replace it. Charlie is the next character introduced, and she does literally the exact same thing as Basil, except she attacks your right door. Not much more to say about her. Night 2 introduces 2 new threats, each of them doing something different, adding a lot more stress to this game. It's during this night I noticed just how hard this game was truly going to get throughout the later nights, because even just on night 2, you're already getting dogpiled, and the reflexes and balancing skills you'll need drastically increase. The first and most recognizable threat added is Florence. He is the Foxy equivalent of this game. He is in fucking jail. No, I'm not kidding, he's literally behind bars. Throughout the night, he'll make his way through several phases before bum rushing your office like your mom bum rushed the cafeteria in her school years, canonically revealing that she's had this terrible eating habit all her life. Of course, watching him on the cameras will slow him down, but with several other characters that will require you to also constantly be watching them, it's safe to say that you won't be stalling him nearly as much as you can stall Foxy, as you do actually have to be looking at him. Unlike Foxy, Florence can attack whichever door he wants. And also, as far as I'm aware, there's no way to force his attack to happen earlier. With Foxy, you could check the left hall, but there doesn't appear to be an equivalent for Florence. What you'll have to do is listen to hear which side his footsteps come on and close the respective door. This brings up a synergy with Basil and Charlie. As I said earlier, each fuse has enough power to block 2 attacks, maybe 3 if you cut it really close, which I wouldn't recommend. So having Florence attack a door that only has 1 attack left, and then noticing that Basil or Charlie is about to attack that door will really get your blood pressure to rise as you quickly whip around to do that quick time event minigame to get a new fuse. I love the stress this character brings, I can't lie. The final threat this night introduces is Dominic. He brings on an entire new mechanic into this game. In your office, you'll now see that you're able to look up. Doing so, you'll find a vent. Hooray! I can't wait to see what this asshole is about to do. Dominic appears in the same camera as Florence. When he decides he's going to try to get to you, he will move to the back room. On this back room camera, you will see a new pop-up at the bottom. It's a heater for the vent. I'm sure you can see where this is going. When Dominic leaves this backroom camera, it means he has just entered your vent. However, that doesn't mean you should blast the vent just yet, as after you use the heater, you'll have to wait for it to cool down. And just because Dominic is in your vents doesn't mean he'll be combated by the heater just yet. This is the point in time where you'll need to constantly check the vent above you to see if you can hear him banging around inside of them. If you don't hear him, don't blast him. When you do hear the banging, this is when you should go to the camera, charge up the heater, and activate it. You do have to be looking at the vent to hear the banging, so don't think you can just avoid looking up, because unfortunately, you cannot. Night 3 is a doozy, adding 1 new threat that in turn adds 1 new mechanic, enough to make everyone's urethra begin to leak blood. So let's talk about her. The threat that Night 3 introduces is Whitney, and Whitney introduces your flashlight. I bet you can already guess what she's going to do. Whitney has 3 avenues she can attack you from: your left door, your right door, and the vent above you. She will wander around the cameras and eventually pick one to attack. When she is at one of those locations, you have to spam your flashlight at her until she goes away. However, something you may have wondered, and no, this flashlight does not work how most FNAF flashlights tend to, as this one is much worse. The rate at which the battery drains from this flashlight is a lunacy. So, to compensate, you're able to charge it back up. But how do you do this, you might ask? Well, on the cameras, you will see a new pop-up. Using this pop-up, you can slowly recharge your flashlight. The problem with this? Obviously, aside from the fact that it's just a fucking music box, which I hate, is that the camera in which this pop-up is on teleports to a random camera whenever it damn well pleases. Did you just fucking hear me? The music box mechanic, aka my second least favorite mechanic of all time, is a find them on the camera mechanic, aka my number 1 least favorite mechanic of all time. This fucking charging flashlight pop-up is the combination of my two least favorite things, and they happen at the same goddamn time. You can't make this shit up, bro. When I first saw this, my penis instantly wilted like a flower and died. Fuck me. And that's not even the end of it, as Whitney behaves in the same way as Charlie and Basil. There is no sound cue for when she arrives at any of the 3 places she can arrive, and you also can't tell if she's there without flashing your light, which I've already explained drains way too quickly for you to just be flashing it all willy-nilly. So you have to track her exactly how you have to track Charlie and Basil. There's not even a crazy amount of characters, yet this is quickly becoming one of the most stressful FNAF games I've ever played. And don't even get me started on how stressful this game gets when you go about replacing your fuses. You will be spending a majority of your time staring at the cameras, especially on later nights when the characters are moving pretty quickly. So having to spend a fuck ton of time grabbing the fuse and replacing it will guarantee that you lose track of literally every character you were watching. It's so stressful, and while I'm not a huge fan of being stressed out, if you could believe that, I do still think it's really cool how this game is able to pull that off. Night 4, and again, just as Five Nights at Freddy's did, Night 4 introduces the big bad antagonist himself, Farley. And let me tell you, he's honestly probably the least threatening character this game's seen so far, with a mechanic that makes him sound a lot scarier than he really is. Let's talk about it. Farley works in the exact same way as Charlie. The goal is to make it to your right door. However, the big catch with Farley is that you can't see him on your cameras. And of course, we already know we can't see door characters at our door. So how do we know where Farley is? Well, every time that Farley moves, he will laugh, which by the way, if you were curious, is just FNAF 1 Freddy's laugh. You will have to keep track throughout the night of how many times Farley laughs, as every 5th laugh will signal that Farley is now at your right door and that you need to close it. And this is where this game introduces a mechanic so cool, yet so useless. In your office, you will now see you have a little notepad. Using this notepad, you will be able to leave little tally marks. Now, why would you need to leave little tally marks? Well, this is this game's way of letting you keep track of how many times Farley has moved so you don't have to just remember. Every time you hear him laugh, open your notepad and mark a line. Once you deal with his attack, switch to your eraser, erase it, and start again. I think this is super cute and unique. I've never seen a FNAF game do something like this before, as most would probably prefer you just remember it yourself because that's way more AIDS-inducing. However, the way the rest of this game controls does bring up an issue with this otherwise awesome mechanic. I have 2 hands, in case you weren't aware, and on my 2 hands, 5 fingers are attached each. What's stopping me from counting Farley's movements on my hand? Doing this is actually a much better choice in my opinion, since it eliminates the time it would otherwise take to drop the camera, open the notebook, mark it down, close the notebook, and then reopen the camera. I think there's a very simple way to solve this problem and further encourage the player to actually use the notebook. All you would have to do is make another mechanic use a keybind. For example, instead of Whitney and the QuickTime event to get the fuse being controlled by the mouse, why not bind both of those systems to your control key? That way the player will have one hand on the mouse and the other on the keyboard most of the night, making it so that using the in-game notepad would make much more sense since you wouldn't have that open hand. I think the idea of the notepad is super nice, and while totally unnecessary, I think if it was encouraged in a more natural way, it would actually be one of the most interesting mechanics I've ever seen in one of these FNAF fan games. But as it exists right now, I just don't see any real reason to use it. Night 5 doesn't have a whole lot to talk about, really just being a much more stressful version of Night 4. On my playthrough, which by the way you can watch over on my second channel, Dexter Black, there was a point where I had to pretty much get 2 fuses in a row because I got unlucky with attacks. Honestly, one of the most stressful moments I've ever had playing a FNAF game. It was so cool. One interesting thing I do want to talk about on this night is the lack of a phone call. Just like FNAF 1, on Night 4, the phone guy gets beamed out of existence by an enemy. On Night 5, if you check the back room, you can see what I can only assume to be the phone guy with his head on an endoskeleton body. If there's one thing about Solar, the developer of this game, she does not hold back on the shock value of her games. That's what I love so much about them. Night 6 time, here we are. Spoiler alert, there's pretty much nothing to talk about, except two things. To start, there's no new threat. Night 6 is just a harder version of Night 5. However, if you look in the back room, you'll notice that the corpse is now missing. And this time around, we actually get a phone call. I'm not going to explain it because I literally can't, so just take a listen. Now you might be asking, Dexter, what the fuck was that, and why did you even show it to me? Well, dear viewer, if you reverse it, you'll hear the following, which I've added captions to. For those of you wondering what any of that means, at the time of writing, I have no idea. And by the way, that inaudible line, I'm gonna need your guys' help with that. Let me know what you think it means. I even reached out to the game's creator, and even she told me that she forgot what the line said. So that's just awesome. But I'm not quite done talking about this game just yet. No, I found something interesting hidden inside of the game. On camera 9, there is a 1 in 10,000 chance for a character by the name of Midas to appear, acting as this game's Golden Freddy, even using the same laugh and hallucination sound as him. He enters your office and his jump scare plays. I'll just let you see it for yourself. So yeah, that's disturbing. As mentioned, that character's name is Midas. I have no idea who this character is supposed to be. However, I do know that we will be finding out, as Solar Neon plans on creating 6 games in the Farley series, and I'm totally looking forward to them. There are still a few more secrets I was able to uncover. In the room where you grab a new fuse box, you'll notice a stack of papers on the ground. Upon picking the papers up, you will see one of the following 3 papers. The first shows a wanted poster for a man inside of what appears to be a bunny costume. It's only a police sketch, but we can see they're wanted for murder. The second paper reads, "Bodies found in local river." In a shocking turn of events, the body of missing boy Thomas Fiver has been found under a bridge in Shantytown. According to the Utah Police Department, Thomas's body was stuffed inside a garbage bag with his head removed. The head has still not been recovered. A note addressed to the police was also found with Thomas's body, written by the guillotine killer. This has been revealed to be his 3rd victim. The guillotine killer, possibly giving a name to the killer in the previous paper, obviously being called that name for decapitating his victims. Another kid killer. Fantastic, but what did we expect, I suppose? And victim number 3. I wonder how many there are in total. The 3rd paper reads, 6 children now reported missing. Over the coming weeks, 6 children have vanished in Shantytown, Utah. While 2 of the missing children have no leads, it is believed that they are further victims of the infamous guillotine killer. Utah Police Chief Edward Cal has stated that they are expecting letters from the killer soon, potentially tying the 2 other children to his spree. Police are hoping to apprehend the killer soon. Well, that answers my question. 6 children this time around. Quite the hefty number, but nothing compared to my 12, but that's not important. What is important is that I lied and there's actually 1 other paper to be found. However, the only way you can get it is if you've been attacked by Midas. So, 1 in 10,000. Your chances aren't great, but lucky you, I'll just show you what the paper is. So it appears Midas came from another restaurant by the name of Midas's Galactic Pizza Palace. Also on this paper, you can see some possible other names for this character, being able to make out Mike, Monty, and Max. As you can tell, this is a napkin, clearly showing that this was a very early idea for a restaurant, even having multiple food ideas like burger and barbecue before settling on pizza, apparently stating that burgers are, quote, too easy to fuck up. And then of course, the sketch of Midas with his absolutely fucking massive veiny head. Disgusting, by the way. So, with the 5 other confirmed games on the way, there's still a lot to unravel this time. And you better believe I'll be here to cover it when it comes around. But as far as I'm aware, that's all Swing Shift at Farley's has to offer. Overall, I think this game is easily one of the most creative pieces of fan game work I've ever seen. Solar Neon is so open to trying new and unique things, and I love that. I'm super looking forward to the other 5 games, and I can't wait to cover them on Dexter Black, and of course, over on this channel. Hold up, guys! As I was working on this video, the second game in the Farley series, Swing Shift at Farley's Jr., actually released. And I thought, well, why not add that game to this video as well? So instead of ending the video right here where I was about to, let's go ahead and jump into Swing Shift at Farley's Jr. So, this is kind of awkward, isn't it? I bet you were getting ready to click off the video and now we have a whole nother game to cover. Well, be grateful, I guess. Farley's Jr. starts with a very FNAF 2 style opening. We're sitting in the POV of who I can only assume to be Farley. We can look left and right and see Basil and Charlie accompanying us. Shortly after the minigame ends, we're booted to the main menu where we can see the toy animatronics. What the fuck? Like, these things literally look like the FNAF characters, but rest assured, they are not. Upon starting the game, we're greeted by a newspaper stating that this time around we aren't monitoring a restaurant, but an entire mall. Awesome. That doesn't sound like there's about to be a metric fuck ton of characters, now does it? Night 1 has a phone call that's like 5 fucking minutes long, and I'm not going to waste my time talking about it. It's your typical Night 1 bullshit, and he explains the characters we'll have to deal with. But of course, if I just let him do that, then I wouldn't really have a job, now would I? So let's start by talking about the tools at our disposal, because there are a hell of a lot more this time around. To start, let's get the obvious out of the way. We have a Farley mask that we can use. However, you may notice the 4 buttons inside of this mask. Don't worry, we'll talk about them in a bit. You can also use your camera to flash the hallway in front of you for a short period of time. However, every time you do, you'll lose 1 film reel. Throughout the cameras, you can find film reels lying around and pick them up. Also in the cameras, you can flash and hold your light on them so that you can actually see, which is very nice. You may also notice music box symbols on a good majority of the cameras. Don't worry, we will also talk about that in a bit. But that's really it in terms of mechanics that actually matter at this point in time, which means we can move on to talking about the threats this night introduces. Night 1 introduces a whopping 4 threats, already matching pretty much the entire crew of the first game, so this is about to get scary. The first ones we'll talk about are Basil Jr. and Charlie Jr., these being the toy variants of the originals. The reason I mentioned talking about both of them is because they both literally do the exact same thing, so no point in talking about them individually. If you couldn't guess because you have a brain deficiency, their goal is to make it to your office through the big hallway in front of you. Since this hallway in front of you is so dark, you won't actually be able to see them if they're there. However, there are 2 things you can do to verify if they are. To start, you can obviously flash the hallway with your camera and check. However, if you don't want to waste a film reel, there is another way. Characters in Farley's Jr. will not move backwards, so once they make it to the hallway camera, if you ever see them leave that camera, that guarantees they'll be in your hallway. So, once you know they're in your hallway, all you have to do is put your mask on. Except, as I'm sure you could have guessed, the buttons don't work like a normal FNAF mask. Upon a character entering your office, their eyes will glow 1 of 4 colors. Depending on which color they are is which color you'll have to press inside of the mask. Once you do this, their eyes will switch to another color. Repeat this process until you've pressed 4 buttons and they will finally leave your office. I don't think I need to explain to you how fucking awesome this is. Solar Neon was able to take one of the most overused FNAF mechanics of all time and add a twist to it that makes it feel new. Does it make a whole lot of sense? No, not really, but it's still really fucking awesome and I love it. The next threat this night introduces is Farley Jr. He works in the exact same way as Basil and Charlie Jr., but with one very frustrating difference. Remember how in the first game Farley would hide in your blind spots? Yeah? Well, Farley Jr. does the exact same thing, except this time around, he doesn't make sound cues when he moves. So that brings up the very appropriate question, how the hell are you supposed to know where he is? Fantastic question that is! If you look at your cameras, you'll notice a large tracker button at the top. Whenever you click that tracker, it will show you which camera Farley Jr. is currently in. However, every time you use the tracker, you have to wait an entire century to be able to use it again. This is literally the only way to tell where Farley Jr. is, so you'll have to get pretty lucky with your timings of this, especially on later nights. With the juniors out of the way, we can move on to the final threat that Night 1 introduces, that being the marionette. Oh boy, I promise you this thing is way worse than you could ever imagine. Of course, this marionette uses a music box mechanic. However, the music box is located on the desk in your office, so you don't have to open your cameras to use it, which I honestly thought was great. But is there a catch? Are you retarded? Of course there's a catch. There's always a catch. The marionette can move throughout the night. The way she moves? Take a fucking guess. Exactly! At random, she'll make a sound cue signifying that she's teleported to a random camera. Another find them on the camera mechanic, mixed with a music box mechanic. All right, fine. I've liked everything Solar Neon has done so far. Maybe if I look deep inside my cold, dead heart, I can find it in me to look past this. Maybe. When the marionette moves, you'll have to find which camera she went to and toggle the music box to said camera using the music box button I mentioned earlier. So while yes, you can wind it from your office, you're still not free of the worst fucking mechanic ever thought of by man. So, that was a lot to introduce in one night, and we've still got 4 or 5 more of these to go. To discover how bad it's going to get, stick around, because I get the really funny feeling that the further we jump into this game, the further my sanity is going to split. Oh my god. I don't even know what to say. Here we are on night 2, and this night is really going to show just how fucking difficult this game is about to be. This night introduces several new threats, all of which make me want to stitch my asshole shut so that I can never shit again. Let's waste no time and start talking about them. Tonight introduces the Withered characters, literally every single one of them. Well, except for one, but we'll talk about that asshole a little bit later. To start, let's talk about Withered Basil and Withered Charlie. I'm going to talk about these two together because just like their junior variants, they both fundamentally do the same thing. On night 2, you'll notice in your office you can now pull 2 gates closed on both sides of you. These gates are important for these 2 threats. Withered Basil and Charlie's goal is to get to your office through these gates. Basil will attack the left and Charlie will attack the right. Just like seemingly every other character in this game, you won't be able to see these two while they're at your doors, so you'll have to track them on the camera to be able to tell when they've disappeared to them. Once you know they're at your door, close their respective gates and wait to hear them hobble away. You know when I said their goal is to attack these doors? Well, I kind of lied because they both have one other form of attack, that being the hallway in front of you. Both characters will appear in the hallway camera. When they disappear, they will do one of 2 things. The first will be moving to a side camera to make their way to their gate. The other will be moving to your hallway just like the juniors do. When you know they're in your hallway, all you have to do is flash them and they'll go away. These 2 characters alone already add a bunch of stress to this gameplay loop, especially with them being able to attack in more than one way. But we're still not done. We have yet to talk about the final threat this night introduces, the Jailhound. Jailhound is an incredibly frustrating character, mainly because he forces you to use 2 means of defense against him, both draining a crucial resource and wasting a lot of time. Jailhound can only attack through your main hallway. You'll know he's there because thankfully he'll start talking to let you know that he is there. The first thing you'll need to do is flash him, using up one of your film reels. Then, and only after you flash him, must you put your mask on. If you put the mask on beforehand, he'll kill you. This is explained by the flash disorienting him enough for the mask to fool him. Pretty interesting explanation, I will admit. Once you put the mask on, he'll enter your office for a short period and leave. Unlike the juniors, you do not have to play the Simon Says minigame inside of the mask. So yeah, a metric shitload of stuff thrown on top of you on only the second night of the game. And let me give you a little spoiler. There's a lot more characters that are going to be added to this loop. And with each one, years of my life are plucked away like nose hairs. I only want to die a lot, guys, don't worry. But I'm not quite ready to move on to night 3, as during my playthrough of night 2, which you can see over on my second channel, Dexter Black, I of course died a few times trying to beat night 2 as I got used to everything. One of those times that I died, I actually got thrown into a death minigame. So let's talk about that. In this minigame, we play as a girl named Crystal. We go to the house of a man named Mr. Martinez, which, judging solely based on the color of his dialogue tech, I'm going to assume he's this game's William Afton. Crystal asks if Terrence, who I can only assume to be his son, is around, as he hasn't been answering messages. Martinez says he's been locked inside of his room after what I can only assume to be a supposed incident. Crystal apologizes about someone named Toby, and at this point, we're not totally sure who that is. Martinez allows Crystal inside to go see Terrence, but when she goes to his room, Martinez is seen pulling out a syringe and following after her, clearly showing that he's about to do something terrible. The only question we'll be left with now is why, and who is Crystal? But with that, we're ready to move on to night 3. With night 3 coming along, we have even more characters thrown onto our shoulders, and I'm really not excited for it. We have another duo group of attackers that pretty much do the exact same thing. So let's talk about them first. These two characters are Balloon Boy and JJ. Yeah, that's right. Solar made JJ an actual threat in this game rather than just the Easter egg that she is in FNAF 2. Let's talk about Balloon Boy first. He will make his way to your left gate. Of course, like every other character, you won't be able to see him in your doorway. However, you won't have to watch him on the cameras either, as every time he moves, he'll make a sound cue. And the second sound cue he makes will signal that he's at your gate, and that you either need to close it or put your mask on. Either will make him go away. JJ is identical, except she attacks the right gate instead. Now, I mentioned these two were slightly different, and what they do if they get into your office is how they're different, since neither of them will actually end your run directly. If Balloon Bitch makes it into your office, he will quickly leave, but not before taking every single film reel out of your camera, forcing you to have to go through all of the cameras to find more. And at this point in the game, you really don't have the time to be doing that. Now, if JJ gets into your office, she'll do something so foul, I'm trying to hold back the vomit from spewing out of my mouth just thinking about it. If JJ gets into your office, she'll steal your fucking mask off the table. She will then teleport to a random camera in which you'll have to fucking find her and click on her in order for her to return it to your desk. Oh my fucking god, that is literally the most evil thing I've ever seen a character in a FNAF game do. Oh fuck. Oh, she took the fucking mask. I'm cooked. I didn't know she took the mask. I thought that sound cue from JJ was her. I thought the sound cue from JJ was her leaving. It was not. It was her grabbing my shit. She copped me. She copped on my shit. I'd rather JJ kill 6 more children than take my shit. I'm being honest. Oh, but guess what? We're still not done because there's still 2 more threats to talk about. I know I said 3 at the start of the night, but these 2 characters are basically 1 character, which is why I'm saying there's 2 more. These characters are Candy Cadet and Astro. The fuck me silly, backwards, forwards, upside down, flip me, bend me combo. Let me explain it. So, you'll need to watch camera 10 to see when either of these 2 leave. It's important you know who leaves first. If Candy leaves, he will approach one of your gates at random. You, of course, will not be able to see him at your gate without either flashing your camera or watching the cams to see when he enters. He also makes no sound cue either, so that's great. Once he's there, you'll need to close the gate until he leaves. However, shortly after Candy Cadet attacks, Astro will attack the other door shortly after. Now, you may be wondering why I mentioned how important it is for you to know who leaves camera 10 first. Well, that's because if Astro leaves first, he'll do something a bit different. If Asshole leaves first, he too will go to either of your gates. However, when he's at your gate, he'll start singing. You need to close which gate you hear him at until he leaves. And of course, when he does, Candy Cadet Hole will soon attack the other side. These 2 add so much more unnecessary stress to this game, and Solar Neon knew exactly what she was doing when she made this. Asshole. Before we move on to night 4, I want to talk about another death minigame I got while working on this night. It's literally an exact copy of the Give Cake minigame from FNAF 2. The only major difference is that we play as Farley instead of Freddy, and instead of a random crying child, we see a girl come to the entrance who in the programming is named Charlie. Soon after, a car pulls up to the building and a man in a bunny mask gets out. Now, while I would imagine this person is probably Martinez, I do have to point out that in the code, this character's name is Guillotine. And if you remember from the first game, is the name of the serial killer. So it appears we get to see the abduction before one of his many murders. But with that, we can move on to night 4. It got worse, guys. Let me tell you, it got so much worse. Way worse than I could have ever imagined. Not only does Night 4 add 2 more characters, but it also adds a brand new mechanic that makes this game far more stressful than it already was. To start, let's talk about the new mechanic. being able to turn off the power to the building. I bet you can take a solid guess where this is going. When the power is off, you obviously can't check your cameras. However, you can still put your mask on and close your gates. With that in mind, now on to the 2 threats this night introduces. Let's start with the simplest one, Mangle. Mangle has 2 ways of getting into your office, the big hallway in front of you and the vent that's on camera 9. I've neglected to mention this vent up until this point because Mangle is the only character to interact with it. Plus, you can't even see or interact with this vent in any way regardless. When you see Mangle in your hallway in front of you, you'll have to shut the building's power off. She'll swoop into the office for a few seconds and then leave, wherein you can then turn it back on. The vent is pretty much the same, but since you can't see the vent, the way you'll know you have to shut the power off is when you hear her in your vent. Turning off the power throughout the night when watching the cameras is so integral to this game's cycle is absolutely brutal, and the final character introduced on this night doesn't help with that at all. Withered Farley is the last character introduced on night 4, and he serves to be one of the most stressful yet. Once Withered Farley makes a successful movement opportunity, he will teleport directly to your main hall. Every time you flash the hallway, you'll be able to see him. Throughout the night, he'll slowly creep his way towards your office, and once he enters, as I'm sure you could have guessed from my intro of him, you'll have to shut the building's power off until he leaves. Mazel tov! I want to die. This is every single threat in the game. And let me tell you, completing this night was honestly one of the hardest challenges I've ever put myself through. And we're not even on to night 5 yet, so I'm really not excited for all that. But there is still one thing I want to talk about before we move on to night 5, and that's another death minigame I got while playing night 4. In it, we play as an unknown character seemingly on a camping trip with another unknown character. Child number 2 wanders off and we go to follow him, only to go deeper and deeper into the forest as we lose track of him. When we find him again, we see him trapped in the back of someone's car as it drives off. Maybe got some inspiration from the FNAF movie, just a hunch. Shortly after, Farley jump scares us. And this leads to a small theory that I have. I get the feeling that for each of these minigames, depending on who jump scares us at the end of them is meant to hint at who the stolen child in said minigame would go on to possess. Just a hunch, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. Anyways, on to night 5, and I'm really not excited for it, I can't lie. Thankfully, night 5 doesn't bring anything new to the table. I thank God for that every day that I wake up, because he knows better than anybody how I would have lost my mind had there been more animatronics added on this night. However, there is something very interesting to note about this night. 1, I never got a death minigame like I was hoping for, but that's fine. And 2, something very interesting happens once you complete the night. I'll let Dexter Black take it away. Subscribe, by the way. Woo! Oh! I need to relax. Wait, what? Mangle still kills you? What the fuck? That's right. Mangle kills you. And when reading the newspaper after the fact, we see that we've been playing as Jeremy Fitzgerald this whole time. Wowee! I'm leaking. What? But with the information of our player now being dead, who's to say what's going to happen on night 6? I'm not sure, and I'm very, very excited. Night 6 is pretty interesting, so let's just jump right into it. To start, we're now playing as Mr. Martinez, both the man who was holding the syringe in an earlier death minigame we talked about, and the man I suspect to be the guillotine killer. In our phone call, we actually get to hear the conversation between Mr. Martinez and the phone guy, and I think listening to it for yourself will be much better than me describing it to you.
Fancy seeing you there, Mr. Martinez. And on a night like tonight.
Why are you interrupting my night, Gretchen?
You tell me, Vincent. Poking around my mall, and during an active investigation, no less. God. You know, I gave you a lot of time. More than I've given most of my vendors. But no. First your hunks of metal fuck with my staff. Then those kids go missing. The cops start ripping my business up. That poor Jeremy kid gets his head smashed in by one of your freaks. The one you told me you would fix. And I now find you there, doing God knows what.
Now what is that supposed to mean?
Oh, I think you've got a pretty damn fine clue.
Are you threatening me, Gretchen? I'm not sure baseless accusations are a good look for you.
Then let me make it simple. If you're not out by the time I get there, I'll throw you out myself.
Is that right now?
Yeah, it is. Wanna know why? Because I've been in this business long enough to know what scum is. Whatever mess you've made, I want it cleaned up. Otherwise,
Shit.
the police might be expecting a little tip soon.
I think this further adds to my confirmation that yes, Mr. Martinez is 100% the guillotine killer and this game's Afton. This night really serves to be a much harder version of Night 5. However, to my surprise, one new character is actually added, that being Midas, the secret character from the first game. He acts in the exact same way as Golden Freddy does in FNAF 2. Occasionally, when you drop your monitor, he'll be in your office. If you don't raise your monitor again fast enough, he'll kill you, easily becoming the most frustrating character in this game in my opinion, as the crazy amount of shit going on is already hard enough to keep track of in your head, but adding this bullshit guy on top of it really serves to make my head explode. However, it did lead to my crazy completion of Night 6. Fuck, I'm dead. What? Holy shit! Tell me that's not the craziest completion you've ever seen. Yeah, I thought so. But with that, Farley's Jr. closes down due to a bunch of bullshit that was completely expected, and Swing Shift at Farley's Jr. comes to a close. At least, that would be the case if we didn't have a bit more lore stuff to talk about, since with Midas actually showing up, I'm sure you could have assumed there's some stuff I was able to find. To start, by going into the extras menu and checking out the characters, moving over to the withered characters, you'll actually see missing posters for each of them, adding to my theory of depending on who jump scares you equating to who the dead child possessed, with Garrett possessing Farley, Charlie Emily possessing Basil, Terrence Martinez and Crystal possessing Jailhound, and an unknown person possessing Charlie. Why is this unknown? Well, because I never actually got Charlie's death minigame. But let's go take a look at it, shall we? In this minigame, we play as Susie Rosa. We walk around town until we eventually stumble across our dog, dead in the middle of the road, clearly being hit by a car. Shortly after, a car pulls up next to us and the guillotine killer steps out, telling us that he can fix our dog if we get in the car with him. And I'm sure you can imagine what he does to her next. And speaking of minigames, there's still plenty to cover. Let's rapid fire through the minigames I never got in my playthrough over on my second channel, Dexter Black, starting with the minigame called Riverbed. We play as an unnamed little boy in the rain. We walk past the place where Susie's dog was killed, and continuing forward, we see the guillotine killer dropping the body of presumably one of his victims in the lake before he is then attacked. And if you remember, this is probably his third victim, which was referenced in one of the papers in Farley's 1. The next minigame is called Save Them. We play as Withered Farley as we follow the marionette through the building. She spells out save them as we travel, but before we can get to the exit, the killer steps in and smashes the marionette to pieces. And finally, we have Late Night, a minigame that's really just a cutscene. We watch a mother talking on a payphone while her daughter is clearly trying to get her attention. Eventually, she wanders off, only for us to see the killer's car whiz by, presumably, I would imagine, hitting her with it, although no sound cue is heard to indicate that. The mother goes to look for her, and then we get jump scared by the marionette, which would tell me that this little girl would go on to possess her. Oh yeah, there actually is another minigame that I got, I just didn't mention it for some reason, so I'll mention it now. It's called I'm Sorry. This one is also just a cutscene, and in a much different style from the others. A boy is sitting in the hospital with Mr. Martinez. They're watching the corpse of an unknown person completely wrapped in gauze. Looking back at Martinez, we see this unsettling image. And with that, that's all of the cutscenes in this game covered. However, we're still not quite done talking about stuff I was able to find. To start, there are several newspaper articles to read just like in the first game. Each appears at random when you click the paper stack in your office. They read, Marvelous Mimic Man. The winner of the 1995 Henton's Robotic Fair has been announced to be Vincent Martinez's Marvelous Mimic Man. This robot won due to its impressive state-of-the-art AI that allows it to near perfectly mimic the actions and poses of anyone around it. Vincent Martinez, the proud creator of the Mimic Man, has made a statement on winning first place. "I am honored to receive this award. Thank you to the judges and especially the voters who made this happen. I hope to show you more of the Mimic Man and other creations like him soon." Farley's closes its doors. Lawsuit from Showbiz Pizza Time Incorporated closes down beloved family restaurant. After a long and grueling trial, Showbiz Pizza Time Incorporated has won its lawsuit against New Edge Incorporated, the owners of Farley's Fun Zone. The lawsuit alleges that New Edge Incorporated not only plagiarized multiple of its characters, but also stole confidential blueprints and schematics for their animatronic mascots. As a result of New Edge losing the lawsuit, they have been ordered to pay Showbiz Pizza Incorporated $3 million in damages. While New Edge has yet to make a statement, their decision to shut all of their 10 Farley's Fun Zone locations has sent a clear message. Obituaries: Abigail Leslie Emily, September 5th, 1954 to July 30th, 1985. Abigail was born on September 5th of 1954. She grew up in a lovely house down north before moving to Utah and marrying a brilliant husband and having a lovely daughter, both of which were unfortunately taken away from her too soon. Abigail tragically killed herself on the 30th of July, 1985 via a self-inflicted gunshot to the head. We hope that Abigail is in the warm light and with her husband and daughter. So, a robot that can mimic people made by Martinez, a plagiarism lawsuit for blueprints and schematics, and a woman who tragically killed herself, each with something redacted. And of course, after getting killed by Midas, there is an additional paper you can read. Tragedy at Midas's. 10-year-old boy bitten by animatronic. This afternoon at Midas's Galactic Pizza Palace, one 10-year-old boy, Tobias Martinez, was bitten by one of the establishment's animatronic characters. It was reported that he was shoved inside its mouth by 4 children who have yet to be identified. Police have not yet confirmed if this is a murder attempt or freak accident, although they are still investigating. Tobias is reportedly in critical condition, with his frontal lobe nearly severed. The owners of Midas's New Edge Incorporated have yet to make public statement on the matter, aside from suspending all operations at the restaurant. Tobias Martinez was bitten and killed at Midas's. I wonder if this isn't the person we see in the hospital bed in the I'm Sorry minigame, as this is clearly this game's equivalent to the Fredbear bite. And since we're drawing parallels, let's draw another one. In the weird phone call all the way in Farley's 1, the first line mentions a riverbed. And what do we see in one of the death minigames? That's right, the guillotine killer throwing a body into a riverbed. Whose body this is, though? No other than Thomas Fiver, Martinez's third victim. But with that, as far as I'm aware, is everything that the first 2 Farley's games have to offer. I'm incredibly excited for the rest of the series that Solar has planned, and she's actually shown me a sneak peek of the 3rd game. I'm obviously not going to spoil anything, but it looks crazy. Overall, both of the Farley's games are clearly heavily inspired by the original FNAF games, and even seem to be following the original pattern and story these games laid out. And I honestly really like it. As I continue to make videos talking about Five Nights at Freddy's games, as each week goes by, I grow more and more nervous that I will eventually run out of interesting games to talk about. Obviously, the next choice would be to start talking about random horror games until new FNAF titles are released. However, recently I found a FNAF fan game I have never heard of before. A game so interesting I couldn't help but get sucked right into it. The game we'll be talking about today is Night Watch at Freddy's, a FNAF fan game that pretends to be an official demo of the original Five Nights at Freddy's games, but is really hiding some incredibly dark secrets. Stick around because you're not going to want to miss out on this one. This is truly one of the most interesting FNAF games I will ever talk about on this channel. So sit back, relax, and join me today as we dive into the depraved world of Night Watch at Freddy's. Night Watch at Freddy's does not begin in the way a normal FNAF game typically begins. I've actually never seen any FNAF game start in the same way that Night Watch at Freddy's does. Upon pressing start, we're greeted to the night screen, where you can already see something interesting. You have the classic live system that was originally supposed to be in the first Five Nights at Freddy's. But let's pause for a second and back way the fuck up. Take a look at this title screen. Do you notice anything strange? Well, if you said that the creator of the game's name looks a bit weird, then you'd be correct. It says the creator's name is Scott Cawthorne, clearly an alternate version of Scott Cawthon. But that's not where it ends. Right next to the name, we can see the year 2014. Spoiler alert, this game was released in 2025. Let's cut to the chase of why I wanted to talk about this game, as clearly there's something weird going on. Night Watch at Freddy's explores an alternate timeline where the original Five Nights at Freddy's game took a significant turn from what we know them as today. Wow, I hear you say. That's a super interesting idea for a FNAF game. Tell me, who could come up with something as interesting as that? Well, the answer to that question is pretty damn cool. This game's lead director is Avocado Dreams, the same person who is responsible for Graveyard Shift at Freddy's and the remnants of Tubbyland, both of which I've covered on this channel, and you should definitely go check out those videos after this one. But for now, let's continue. Knowing that this game is supposed to be a demo for what the first official FNAF game was intended to be. Of course, since this is an alternate timeline of the official FNAF games, in this alternate universe, Scott actually did end up including the live system that was left out of the official games. And you'll notice plenty more details just like this. For example, there's actually a fake alternate version of the classic Scott Games website, Scott Productions. The team responsible for this game really went all out. This is one of the coolest experiences I've ever seen in my entire time working on FNAF stuff. Before we load into the office, we get to see a developer note talking about Night 1. Keep in mind, Night Watch at Freddy's is pretending to be a demo, so notes like these are pretty common. Welcome to Night Watch at Freddy's, or at least the prototype of it. Some things are still subject to change. For right now though, you can play through what's done of the game and get a feel for how it's going to end up. Night 1 begins, and we of course get a phone call from this game's phone guy. He gives the basic Night 1 spiel that we're all used to. However, he does mention how the breaker and power systems work. Of course, that's my job, so I'm going to be doing that instead. A few things you'll immediately notice about this game. The first, and in my opinion, biggest outlier is how the doors behave. You'll notice that they're already closed from the beginning of the night. You can open the doors and flash the hallways, and doing so increases your usage. Your light especially, but we'll talk about that more once we get into the characters. Moving on to your cameras, you'll notice another scrapped feature from the official games is present here, that being the original camera buttons, where they were originally intended to be circles that would project the direction they were actually facing in the building. Such a super small, cool detail, but if there's anything Avocado Dreams is good at, it's attention to detail. Only one animatronic is introduced on Night 1, that character being Bonnie. Of course, this is an alternative FNAF 1 after all, so keeping the overall order of the character introduction does make sense. Bonnie, as I'm sure you could have guessed, is pretty simple to deal with overall. Bonnie's goal is to get to your left door, exactly how he does in the original. However, the way you deal with him is different, and he also introduces a new mechanic in the form of points into the game. Once Bonnie reaches your left hallway, staring at him on the cameras will stall him. This will become integral once we start talking about another character that gets introduced. While you're stalling Bonnie, you will get 5 points around every 0.5 seconds. So the longer you watch him, the longer he doesn't move, and the more points you obtain. Something additional to note are your lives. If you are to lose all of them, you don't have to start all the way back on Night 1. Instead, your points will just get reset to 0. On top of that, after every completed night, you will gain 1 life. Anyways, back to talking about Bonnie. Once Bonnie reaches your door, you have to open it and hold your light on him until he goes away, which will happen pretty quickly, thankfully, because as I've said before, the lights will absolutely ramp up your breaker stress. Once Bonnie leaves, you'll want to close the door again. Oh my god, oh my fucking god, oh my fucking god, it runs. My chest, dude. Oh my god, don't do that ever again. Ding. No thanks. This mechanic does bring up an interesting and pretty scary point. The doors are closed by default, and if you don't open the door and flash Bonnie when he is there, he will jump scare you. So that brings up the terrifying realization. Bonnie is strong enough to open the door if he really wanted to. Put yourself in the shoes of the Night God for a second. If that doesn't scare the absolute piss and shit out of you, I don't know what will. But aside from that, that's all Bonnie does. Something additional I do want to point out about Bonnie is how fucked up and gross he looks. Why are his ears down like that? Tell me that's not disgusting. Dogs put their ears down when they know they did something bad, and cats put their ears down when they're about to do something bad. So what the hell does a bunny with its ears down mean? That I'm about to get back shots? Probably, and I don't want that. Nice job getting past the first night. Still wondering what I should do with that raccoon. If anyone has any ideas, please let me know. Night 2's phone call just explains one of the new characters. Additionally, Phone Guy says he's going to drop the script the company wants him to read and instead just tell some stories during the phone calls, which he doesn't end up doing this time around. However, towards the end of the call, his dog runs into a fucking door like a moron, and then he ends the call to go take it for a walk. I think that's supposed to be a hint for one of the characters this night introduces, because I have no idea what else that could be. Like the official FNAF 1, Night 2 introduces 2 new threats, Foxy and Chica. Let's go over Chica first, since she's pretty much just Bonnie with a small difference. She will do the same thing that Bonnie does, except she'll go to the right door instead. Same thing goes. Staring at her in the right hall will stall her, and while you stall her, you'll gain points. However, the difference with Chica is how you deal with her once she reaches your door. You still have to open it, but instead of holding the light on her, you have to flash your light at her. Now, come in real close and let me give you a little tip about clicking on things in almost any Click Team Fusion game. The way Click Team seems to register clicks can be delayed depending on your mouse position. I actually first noticed this during my playthrough of Tyke & Sons Lumber Co. a few months ago. If you keep your mouse stationary and click on something really fast, Click Team will not register every click you make. However, if you click, move your mouse slightly really fast, and then click again, then it will register every click. This is exactly how you can get Chica to go away really fast. If you jitter click your mouse and whip around the cursor in a small enough area over the lever, you will flash the light really fast, making Chica leave faster. Fun fact, you can also use this clicking method to ring the bell on your desk really fast and make your grandma's tinnitus act up. But you didn't hear that from me. The other character this night introduces is Foxy, who for some reason is gender swapped in this game. Not really sure on that decision. Maybe Foxy was going to be a girl in the official games, but Scott changed it, and this game is drawing from that. Or who knows, maybe Avocado Dreams just wanted a female Foxy. Either way, it's not really important. Foxy almost works the same way she does in the original. She still has multiple phases she will go through before charging at your office. However, I'm unsure if being on the camera stalls her this time around. After she gets to her final phase and disappears to charge at your office, you'll have to check Pirate's Cove and look at her sign to see which door she's charging at, since yes, she can attack both. Once you know which door she's going to attack, all you have to do is open that door and wait for her to arrive. She'll lean in and yell at you before running back to her cove. From there, you can just close the door and easy peasy lemon dick, she's been dealt with. Keeping this one short since I haven't really been feeling the best lately. The more I work on this project, the more I feel like it's not aligning with what I've learned over the years. The overall themes are just... I guess it's just something I'll have to get used to. Hopefully it won't impact development too much. Also, I keep getting questions on how to deal with the Golden Freddy. The statue in the entrance doesn't move. There's not even any coding for it to move. I don't understand what you all are talking about. Night 3's phone call is an interesting one. It begins with the phone guy telling us about his dog running into the door. Idiot ass dog. Cats are way better anyways. He starts talking about the new character, a puppet, and about how it really creeps him out. You can tell by the sound in his voice that he really doesn't like this thing.
Dog. It freaks me out.
He explains how to deal with it and abruptly ends the call by yelling at us to not let it out of our sight. So, as I'm sure you could have guessed, the new threat on this night is the puppet, which I'm sure you already knew was not in the original FNAF 1. So, how is this character going to work? Well, it's probably one of the most nerve-wracking, stressful, and anxiety-inducing characters in the entire game. Occasionally, you will hear a sound cue, one that I can't really describe with words. It's really weird. Anyways, when you hear it, the puppet will appear on one of 4 cameras at the bottom of the map at random. It will either be in the bathroom, the show stage, the party room, or the kitchen. You will have to find which 4 of these cameras it's on and hold the stop button like a music box to make it go away. If you don't do this in time, the pup pet is going to pup plow on that pup pussy. Jesus Christ, what is wrong with me, bro? Oh my God. Put me in a fucking cage, dude. Overall, it doesn't add anything too crazy to the mix so far. Your strategy at this point should be watching Foxy and the two Halls, staring at Bonnie or Chica to desync the two from attacking at the same time, and whenever you hear the sound cue, go deal with the puppet. Overall, not too bad, but night 4 is when things really start to ramp up. This is getting a bit crazy. I thought adding more depth would increase the replayability, but it's honestly overwhelming. Maybe I'll just change it so Freddy only appears during the power outage, but that might be a bit lame. Time will tell, I guess. I'm worried that having so many different things to do might be too much. Also, added the ability to ring the bell on the desk. Thank Lane for that idea. Night 4's phone call gets pretty serious. The phone guy explains that the animatronics are not acting right at all, going places they shouldn't be going, snapping their jaws shut, which they shouldn't even be programmed to do. He mentions Freddy specifically, and how one time before showtime, they found him in the garage of the building, staring at the main power breaker. So yeah, that sounds like Bad News Bears. Get it? Bears? Like Freddy because he's yeah, you get it. Night 4 introduces this game's final threat. Obviously, it's Freddy. And Freddy ties this game's loop together by single-handedly being the most stressful character in the entire game and making every other character feel 10 times more stressful than they already were. Just like the puppet, Freddy will occasionally laugh. When he does, that signifies that he has moved cameras. Freddy can move between only 5 cameras, and getting to your office is not a concern of his. When he moves off the show stage, he will either go to the bathrooms, the party room, the back room, or the kitchen. If at any point you hear him move and you can't find him on any 4 of those cameras, then that means he's moved to the garage. The garage camera, of course, has no video feed. So the only way to know for sure if Freddy is in there is by checking the 4 other possible cameras he can be in. When you know he's in the garage, you will be able to use the garage's camera scanner. The scanner will then shock the absolute living shit out of him and make him piss off. If you don't shock him fast enough, he will punch the shit out of your breaker and you will completely lose power. So there you go. There is every single character at the same time. Can you see how stressful this could be? Having to constantly watch Foxy, having to balance stalling Bonnie and Chica, balancing your power usage and your camera usage and the power aids that will happen when you use your lights, and on top of that, having 2 characters that will require you to, at random, play a stupid fucking find them on the camera mechanic game, while having one of those bullshit characters also mixing in a small music box mechanic at the same time. Does that sound a little bit overwhelming? If you said yes, that's because it kind of is. But in all honesty, I love this gameplay loop. Sure, I'm not a fan of the find them on the camera mechanics at all, but somehow this game manages to make every single action you do feel satisfying. It's really hard to put into words, and I would highly recommend you check this game out for yourself, or ideally watch my full playthrough over on my second channel, Dexter Black. Link in the description. Nothing really to mention here. I'm just so unsure of everything revolving around this project right now. The ideas are definitely there. I'm proud of the models, the atmosphere is in place, but something still feels so off. I'm really unsure if people will enjoy this, especially with how grim the story is. When I explained the story to my mom, she went pale and just asked me, "What are you thinking?" Just a few weeks ago, I'd have had the answer. Now I'm not so sure. Is this really something anyone would want? Would a story like this really be part of his plan for me? I don't know. I guess it just really goes to show I'm out of my depth completely. There's one more thing I want to try. There's only one way to find out if I'll be satisfied with it though. Night 5 introduces nothing new, just being a harder version of Night 4. But it's clear from the developer notes that the dev is really starting to doubt themselves. And trust me, the phone guy is having a mental breakdown as well.
Hey, glad to hear that you're alright. I was worried since, you see, there's sort of something I've been wanting to tell you. It's kinda... Okay, no, I can't do this anymore, dude. Everything's gone wrong, and I think I know why. On your first night, I told you about a birthday party that went bad way back, yeah? I was keeping quiet on the details. It's a sensitive subject around here, but during the party, the animatronics started going crazy. kind of like they've been recently, and before anyone knew what happened, the power went out. Kids were screaming, parents were running around, and we were doing everything we could to get the lights back on. But by the time we did, the birthday boy was gone. And we couldn't find him anywhere, and no power meant no cameras, so we didn't have any leads. Not until our night guard didn't clock in for a shift. He hadn't missed a single shift before then, and he would have known exactly how the camera systems worked, so people filled in the blanks. Started a manhunt. Management tried to forget the whole thing, but the town sure didn't. And now it's looking like it's only gonna get worse. I swear I'm seeing things that aren't there, hearing sounds on the walls, and that puppet thing keeps vanishing. I don't know why the animatronics are moving, but all of this, there's only one explanation I could think of. That kid's still here, like his ghost or something. I think it's responsible for everything that's happened since then. And deep down, maybe you're thinking the same thing. That's the only reason I can think of for why you keep coming back. Maybe you know something I don't, but here's the facts, man. This place isn't safe anymore. I'm taking my last paycheck and getting out of here. I'd suggest you do the same, but it seems you're pretty dead set on whatever it is you're trying to do. But I'm sorry I wasn't completely honest with you. No one else believed me, and look, I can't do much to make it up to you, but I know this place that serves some good drinks, and the food's pretty great. Had no animatronics either. Just give me a call tomorrow if you're up for it. My treat, man. It's the least I could do. Good luck.
After completing Night 5, we get our paycheck as usual. But of course, if you've ever seen any FNAF game in your entire life before, then you'd know we're not quite done yet. Going back to the title screen, we'll see we've unlocked the Overtime Night. And surprisingly, it is not just a harder version of Night 5. Overtime Night starts with a phone call, not from the phone guy we've been hearing so far. If you remember, he said he was quitting, and exactly that he did. The phone call we get tonight is from a woman, talking about how employees have been spreading rumors about the animatronics and monsters, all of which we know is true. She says that all employees who have been spreading these rumors will be docked pay, which I'm no expert, but I'm pretty sure that's illegal. And with that, Overtime Night begins. Let's just start by getting one thing out of the way. This night is stressful. However, it's really fun. The entire game is really fun. When I first heard this game was made by Avocado Dreams, I was really scared it was going to be incredibly fucking hard like Graveyard Shift and Remnants of Tubbyland. But to my surprise, while yes, this game definitely isn't easy, there is very little RNG that is overwhelming, and I was actually able to complete this night. Overtime Night introduces one final threat, which this game calls Jailbird. Jailbird is not at all a hard threat to deal with. I feel like she serves more as a nuisance character that you need to spend time on more than a threat that will actually get you killed. Editor, don't you dare think about playing the clip where I died to her. You know full well I died there because I didn't fully understand how she worked yet. Don't even start with me, Buster. You're on thin ice, bitch! Ooh! Ooh! What the fuck was that thing? Whoa! Whoa! What the hell was that thing? Jailbird will wander around your cameras in an attempt to get to your garage. When she gets to the garage, she'll start to open the garage's door. When it opens, she will, for some reason, be at the front door to your office, which up until this point has never been used. If you take a look at the map, I'm not entirely sure how her opening up the garage door makes her end up here. That doesn't make much sense to me, and is why I didn't fully understand her at first. Editor, piece of shit! When you know she's behind that door, you will have to quickly spam open and close your camera. This will make her slowly emerge from behind the door and eventually leave your office. How does this make sense whatsoever? I have no idea. Don't question it. Boss character, hooray, hooray, weird shit! This night is very fast-paced, but because of the way all of the mechanics in this game work together, it serves to be an incredibly satisfying and enjoyable night overall. The difficulty is definitely high, but it is in no way overwhelming like some of Avocado Dream's other games, which I, as someone who is dog shit at FNAF games, can really appreciate. Of course, you also have your custom night, but on top of that, after beating overtime, you get access to aggressive mode, an optional setting you can use to play through the entire game again with all of the characters having movement opportunities more often. I, for obvious reasons, did not try to complete this mode. However, I know there are some people crazy enough to complete it, and I congratulate all of you who were able to, because watching playthroughs of aggressive mode is actually insane. And of course, it wouldn't be a FNAF game without some secrets and Easter eggs, so we might as well cover those as well, right? The first Easter egg is a Golden Freddy Easter egg. I'm not totally sure how it's pulled off, but just taking a look at the video I found, it seems like you need to flip your camera up and down a few times, then sit on the show stage camera. Golden Freddy should start reciting a Bible verse. Interestingly enough, the Bible verse he's saying is about Hebrews who created a golden calf to worship right before they were freed by God. Exodus 32:31. Afterwards, when you pull the camera down, you'll get this jump scare. In one of the earlier dev notes, the developer mentions a raccoon character that they didn't know what to do with. So during my playthrough, which you can see over on my second channel, Dexter Black, I thought the final character in the overtime night was going to be this raccoon, but obviously I was wrong. However, there is a chance you can find these renders of him throughout the game. But as far as I'm aware, that's all Night Watch at Freddy's has to offer. I'm pretty confident that we will be getting more games in this series, since it seems the developers' dive into turmoil is only just beginning. And you better believe I'll be around when and if those sequels or prequels come out. Overall, I think Night Watch at Freddy's has become my favorite Avocado Dreams fan project. And no, that's not just because it was the only one I've been able to beat. I think the idea for the story is incredibly unique. The character designs are great, the game mechanics are literally amazing, and every character works together so well. And of course, it doesn't rely too much on RNG. But let me know what you think. Do you agree with me, or do you think this is easily the worst fan game Avocado Dreams has ever worked on? One of my favorite genres of games is roguelikes. I also, as I'm sure you could have guessed, really like Five Nights at Freddy's games. I've only built a whole career off of it, so I'm sure you could have figured that out. So I bet you can imagine my pleasant surprise when I was told that there was a Five Nights at Freddy's game that was also a roguelike. The moment I learned of this, I downloaded it as fast as I could and started filming videos because I just knew even before playing it that it was going to be getting a Dexter White video, and here we are now. You guys know what game I'm talking about. You can see the length of this video. I very clearly like this game a lot. So sit back, relax, and join me as we dive into the chaotic world of Too Many Nights. Unlike most FNAF games, Too Many Nights doesn't follow any storyline or the typical FNAF formula. Instead, it acts as an endless minigame that doesn't stop until you fail. Although I'm sure you already knew that considering everyone on Earth has played a roguelike before. At the start of each run, you will get to pick a character, of which there are many. Each character gives you a different set of abilities, with each having a list of pro and cons. You don't start with all of them and will have to gradually unlock them by doing specific tasks. I'll go over them in a bit. After picking a character, you will have to select 3 animatronics to put into the pizzeria. And this is where this game gets brilliant. You get to choose 3 animatronics yourself. The game will never choose them for you, and your initial choices will be random at the start of each run. However, if you really don't like your starting options, you can press R to re-roll your first pick as much as you'd like. As I'm sure you could have guessed, there are several animatronics in Too Many Nights. Each has a unique mechanic, and it will be up to you to plan out which animatronics you bring along, and control how they will be forced to interact with each other. Each animatronic falls into a certain category. You have your door animatronics, your camera animatronics, your mask animatronics, your vent animatronics, your flashlight animatronics, and what I'm going to call your nuisance animatronics. Each of these categories serves its own purpose, and generally speaking, picking multiple animatronics from the same category will make your gameplay experience easier. Before I really start talking about the characters, I'd like to explain the rest of the experience of a run. To start, after selecting your first 3 animatronics, the run will begin. After completing a night, you will be forced to add 1 new character. Every few nights, you will also be forced to add a penalty. These penalties fall into 2 categories: your general penalties and your character penalties. I'll dive into each of these later as well. After selecting a penalty, you may get the chance to go to the shop and buy some items. Throughout the night, you will gain Faz coins from successfully defending yourself from the animatronics. Once again, I will get into these items later. Keep repeating this process until you eventually die, and boom, that's the gameplay loop of Too Many Nights. Of course, that was a very oversimplified explanation. So now we're going to dive into each of the animatronics, how they work, and to keep it interesting, I'll even throw each character into a tier list so that you can all argue about it in the comments. I'm just going to go down the list that appears on the wiki, and be prepared, there are a lot of animatronics. Editor, I'd say I'm sorry for what you're about to have to do, but that would be a lie. Let's go. Freddy is a camera animatronic, aka my personal least favorite type of animatronic. Freddy will start on stage and make his way towards your right door. All you have to do is occasionally stare at him on the cameras to make him go backwards. I'm sure you can guess why I'm not going to like a majority of these camera animatronics. If he ever reaches your door, he will never leave and you'll be forced to keep it closed for the rest of the night or die. Freddy also has 5 penalties that have the option to be chosen when you have to select a penalty. The first is Mad Freddy, which will make you have to look at Freddy longer to make him go backwards. His second penalty is Branched, which gives him a chance to be able to attack your left door as well. And when you're playing this game, you will very quickly fall into a pattern, so having a character be able to switch up on you like this would very obviously throw you off. Stare Down is another Freddy penalty. This one is horrific. It makes Freddy never move backwards. Staring at him will only stall him. However, to compensate, he moves a lot slower, and the camera doesn't have to be up for you to be able to stall him. Invisifreddy is a penalty that I'm sure you could take a solid guess at what it does. That's right, it makes him fucking invisible. Isn't that great? Sure, a sound cue is added to his movements, but fuck that. That just sounds like AIDS. Finally, we have Nuh-uh, a penalty that's just so silly. When Freddy gets to your door, he will prevent the door from ever closing again throughout the rest of the night. Isn't that awesome? No, it isn't? Yeah, I know. Don't choose this one if you can help it. Overall, I'm not a fan of Freddy, but without penalties, he isn't the worst character in this game, so I'm going to give him a C tier. Bonnie is a door character, aka a character I usually like to pick. Bonnie starts on stage and makes his way to your left door. Once there, a sound cue will play and you'll have to close the door and stare at him on the camera until he goes away. Then you can open the door again. Incredibly easy character, however he does have 3 penalties. Cutting is a penalty that makes both Bonnie and Chica take shorter paths to your doors. Because of how easy both of them are to deal with, this penalty isn't too bad. Quiet Steps makes Bonnie and Chica not make sound cues while at your door, so yeah, fuck that. No other words need to be said. And finally, Flip Side is a penalty that will make Bonnie and Chica swap doors immediately after leaving the first door. Easily the second worst penalty these two have. Speaking of Bonnie and Chica, Chica is literally identical to Bonnie, except she attacks the right door instead of the left. And because of this, and how quick I am to pick these two, I'm putting both of them in S tier. Foxy isn't the worst character I've seen, but I did avoid choosing him for a very long time. Foxy will try to leave his stage in the ticket booth. Have your camera on him to stall him. If you don't, he'll charge at your door and bang on it, and make you lose a poop sock full of power. Foxy has 3 penalties and 1 item, which is pretty cool. Insta Foxy is a penalty that will cause Foxy to instantly start in his last phase at the start of a night. This penalty actually isn't that bad at all, just let him charge right away and it's like the penalty isn't even there anymore. Hen House is a penalty that forces the camera to be up to stall Foxy, which actually is the most cancerous thing I've ever heard of. Haywire is the final penalty, which will make him attack your other door directly after attacking the first door. The only bad part about this is that him banging on your door drains power. And the item that Foxy has is called Good Guy, which makes Foxy not a threat. Looking at him will make him progress, and when he comes to your office, he'll give you a nice little gift like a good boy. Because of how much of a non-issue he is if you balance him properly with the other characters, I'm putting him in B tier. Mangle is a vent animatronic, and she's honestly not that big of a problem. She'll move through the cameras into one of your vents. All you have to do is put your mask on when she's in a vent. She will enter the office for a short period and then leave. I personally hate having to use the mask in this game, so I try my best to avoid characters that force that, but Mangle is probably the easiest of them. Mangle does have 3 penalties. Anger management is a penalty that makes looking at Mangle speed her up. Aggressive Mangle is a penalty that makes Mangle force you to put the mask on for longer. And finally, slithering in is a penalty that causes looking at Mangle in the vents to make her immediately appear in your office. Overall, I hate the mask mechanic. However, Mangle isn't the worst mask character in the game, so I'm giving her a C tier. Caroline, or the marionette, behaves exactly how you'd expect her to. She's a music box. Hooray! Who could have expected that? If the music box winds down, for the rest of the night she will randomly teleport to a camera with a sound cue at random intervals. You will have to find her and stare at her if you don't want her to kill you. She does, however, have a whopping 6 fucking penalties, so that's just amazing. Let's go over all of them quickly. Winding down makes you have to wind the music box for longer. Moving box makes the music box move to a random camera every time you pull the camera down. AIDS. Muted music makes her not make a sound cue when she teleports to a camera. Show Stealer gives you less time to find her while she's away from the music box. Last Stand is really ass, by the way. When it turns 6 a.m., Caroline will teleport to a random camera, and the night will only end once you find her. Dude, there's nothing I can do about that. I can't do anything about that. That's just fucking cooked, bro. I can't do nothing about that. And finally, the worst penalty yet, Caroline Carousel, which will make her be away from the music box the entire night. Genuinely, never pick this penalty. Caroline is definitely annoying, but in all honesty, the music box is pretty forgiving until much later nights. So, because of this, I'm only putting her in D tier. Lizzie is the first non-FNAF canon character we'll be talking about. Fun fact, there are a lot of non-canon characters, but I think that's what adds to this game's charm. Lizzie herself isn't actually the threat. She spawns down bitty buds in your office while your camera is up. Simply hold your flashlight on them and they'll disappear. If there are too many, they'll call Lizzie and she will then kill you. Lizzie has 2 different penalties as well. Speedy Bud will make the bitty buds call Lizzie to your office faster, and Help Wanted will turn the brightly colored bitty buds into dark colored plush Lizzies, which are much harder to see in the very purple office. Lizzie is one of my favorite characters to see in my runs. I love flashlight characters, and I really love office characters. So because of this, I'm giving her S tier. BB is a bitch, but I'm sure you didn't need me to tell you that. And of course, they gave him the worst mechanic of all time. At random times, he will teleport to a random camera with a sound cue.
Hello?
You will have to find which camera he's on and hold the flashlight on him.
Bye-bye.
If that wasn't bad enough, his penalties make him even worse. Mute BB makes him not make a sound cue, which is actually just fucking torment. Don't pick this. I'm Moving will make him teleport to a second camera after you find him the first time. Little asshole. And Aggressive BB will force you to hold the light on him for longer. Literally, fuck that. I'm sure from the tone in my voice, you can tell I really don't like BB. So because of that, I'm obviously giving him an F tier. Sparky the dog is a camera character that makes me piss blood. He's in the storage room and has 4 phases he will move through before appearing in your office and forcing you to put the mask on for a decently long time. To prevent this, all you have to do is stare at him on the cameras, something I've already made clear I'm not a super huge fan of. He also has 3 penalties if your urine wasn't already red enough. Mad Sparky will force you to look at him on the cameras for longer to push him back. Sparky Speedy will make Sparky move faster, obviously. And Aggressive Sparky will make you put the mask on longer if he enters the office. I don't like camera characters. I hate the idea of staring at a character to stop them. D tier. Percy Poodle, yes, from Playtime with Percy, is easily one of the best characters in the game. Being an office flashlight animatronic, all he does is have multiple phases in front of the big office window. He'll start pounding on the glass in his final phase, and you'll then have to hold the flashlight on him to make him go back. He also only has 2 penalties, and both of them really aren't that bad. Aggressive Percy will make him only go back to his last stage the first time you deal with him, but only the first time, so who cares? And Mute Percy makes him make no sound cue when he's pounding on the glass, so just open your eyes and this won't be a problem. Percy is simple. Percy is always an easy pick. S tier. Rowan Rat, on the other hand, is actual fucking torment. At random times, he will appear in any of the 4 corners of the building. When you see him in one, shock him and he'll go away. You will also have the ability to use a radar to detect where he is and where he's going. Oh yeah, and you only have a certain number of shocks, so that's just terrible. He has 4 possible penalties, and all of them are worse than death. Aggressive Rowan gives you less time to shock him. No radar removes the fucking radar, making you constantly have to check all 4 corners yourself. Less shocks obviously gives you less shocks, as the name would suggest. And Invisi-Rowan makes him fucking invisible. Fuck that. Never in a million years am I picking that shitty option. Rowan by himself isn't the worst, but if you get any of his penalties, which will happen eventually, he becomes a nightmare. So I'm putting him in D tier. Maple is almost a good character, but because it's not the only character you'll be up against, it's hard to find it as an attractive pick. At the beginning of each night, it will require you to collect a certain amount of plushies. This number increases with its AI value. You will then have to search around the cameras for these plushies. If you don't find them all before 6 AM, it'll kill you. Amazing mechanic, but again, it's not the only one, so it's really just more of a pain in the ass. It does have 3 penalties. What are those? Well, Early Killer will have it check if you have the plushies at 5 AM rather than 6. Hidden Counter will literally just make it not tell you how many plushies you need to find, which is bullshit. And Restock will add a timer to how fast you need to find the plushies. If you don't find them in time, it'll re-hide all the plushies again, forcing you to find them all in pretty much one go. Again, it's not the worst, but can easily get out of control on later nights when you start to only focus on certain cameras while it has the large plushie counter. So I'm going to give it a C tier. Noelle is another very interesting character that easily has the chance to be forgotten about. When you start the night, a pair of scissors will appear on a random camera. At complete random, Noelle can appear in the office with a sound cue. When it does, you need to find the scissors and click them to make it go away. The scissors will then teleport to another random camera. If you don't click the scissors, it'll force you to put the mask on for a few seconds, which is a long time in this game. Noelle, of course, has 3 penalties. Pull down will make it forcefully pull down the camera when it enters your office, which could honestly be seen as a good thing. Bro, that's not okay. I fucked myself. Having the force pull down from Noelle mixed with the Roby absolutely fucking creamed my ass, dude. Aggressive Noelle is terrible. When it enters your office, if you click any camera aside from the one with the scissors, it will immediately make you put the mask on. And Crazed Teddy will cause it to insta-kill you instead of putting the mask on. A certain item does affect Noelle, however. If you have Chill Pill, you will get 4 additional seconds to put the mask on when it attacks you, which is a lot of time in this game. I'm not a huge fan of Noelle, especially not when it has Aggressive on, so because of this, I'm going to put it in C tier. Melatonin is a real bitch of a character. It moves around the cameras, but it's invisible when it does. You'll hear it laughing in one of your ears, and on the 3rd laugh, you'll have to close the door of whichever side it's on until you hear it leave. It has 2 penalties that just serve as the salt in the wound as well. Switch Up is easily the worst. Before it moves, you'll have to check the dining room to see a counter for how many laughs it'll have before attacking, now being randomized from 2 to 4. Unplanned only makes its first laugh on the correct side, needing you to remember which side it was originally on. I don't like characters that I can't see. I also find it really hard to keep a timer in your head like you need to do with Melatonin, so because of this, I'm putting it in D tier. Lydia is a dog. She'll be in the ticket booth in a fucking cage where she belongs. When you hear her banging on the cage, you'll have to take her out like Ol' Yeller. Just kidding, you actually just have to hold the cage until that dumb mutt shuts up. The wiki, for some reason, doesn't have a page for her, and since I avoided her at all costs, I actually never experienced any of her penalties. But if I had to guess, I'd bet one of them makes you hold her cage for longer, and another makes her not make noise when she's attacking. But going off of how I know her to be with no penalties, I'm going to put her in C tier. Amber is a character that at first didn't seem too bad, but will very quickly become a run killer. She begins at the entrance. At random times, she'll hold up a playing card with a suit on it. You will then have to click the corresponding suit on the cameras or she'll kill you. The 2 penalties she has might actually be the most evil ones in the entire game. Follow Suit will give her the ability to have more than 1 card, and 52 Pickup will make that number of cards she can hold literally be any number, which is so retarded I can't even begin to explain why you shouldn't pick this, so just don't. I thought Amber would be great, but I very quickly started to avoid her whenever I could. C tier. CG is annoying, a nuisance character, but not very hard to deal with unless you get unlucky. She will randomly move around the cameras, and if you look at her on the cameras for too long, she'll make you put the mask on for a really, really long time. Her penalties aren't really the worst, however. Aggressive CG will make you put the mask on for longer, and Insta CG will make her enter your office if you look at her, period, even if only for a fraction of a second. However, a monitor is added to your office showing exactly where she is at all times so that you can easily avoid her. There are much worse nuisance characters, and if you don't have any of her penalties, she really isn't a problem. B tier. Desam is a character I never once chose throughout my playthrough. You may think that makes me a bad reviewer, but I personally think that makes me someone who values not killing myself. Sam will slowly walk back and forth in front of your window with some sound cues. Before he gets to a door, you will have to close it, making him a character you pretty much always have to be watching. He has 2 penalties. Quiet Sam removes his sound cues, and Invisa Sam forces you to only use his sound cues. So pick your poison, dumbass, or even better, just don't pick this character. D tier. Roby is torture. I thought he wouldn't be so bad, and let's just say I wasn't so right. He sits in your office with a timer on his eye. When it reaches 0, you must have your mask on or you will die. He has 2 penalties that are all equally terrible. Mute Roby removes the sound cue he makes right before waking up. Awoken Roby makes him stay awake longer, forcing you to put the mask on longer. I'm dead serious. Don't pick this character. He is horrific. F tier. Alexis is simple, but very easy to forget about, especially on later nights. She will randomly wander around the cameras. If you pull the camera down while on the camera she's at, she'll make you put the mask on for a really long time. So you'll have to switch cameras before pulling them down. She also has 3 penalties. Aggressive Alexis makes her act like CG, where looking at her for too long will also make her attack you. Sneaky Ghost will only make her appear on a camera after you look at it for a second, and Crazed Ghost will insta-kill you instead of making you put the mask on. If you are diligent and aren't an idiot, Alexis is not an issue. But because of how fast you'll be switching through cameras on later nights, I can't give her any higher than a B tier. Onion is another character I never choose. When you pull up the cameras, there's a chance he'll be on them and quickly run left or right. You will have to close the corresponding door. If you close both, he'll drain a bunch of power. Again, for some reason he doesn't have a wiki page, so I don't know what his penalties are, but just knowing what he does, I'm going to put him in C tier. T Generic is a very annoying character who I only choose if every other character was ass. He will be in the entrance with an arrow on his face. Once he leaves the entrance, he will go to whichever vent he was pointing to, and you'll have to stare at him in that vent until he goes away. If he gets into your office, you'll have to put the mask on for a very long time. He has 3 penalties that somehow make him even more annoying. Crazed Robot will make him insta-kill you instead of putting the mask on. How About I Do Anyway will make him enter your office regardless of if you looked at him in the vents or not. However, if you did look at him, you'll have to put the mask on for a shorter amount of time. And Glitched will make T Generic sometimes switch what vent he's going to, making his arrows completely useless. He's a character that breaks the rules and that breaks my balls. D tier. Kaiden acts in much the same way as T Generic. He'll start in the entrance holding a sign with an arrow pointing left or right. Once he leaves with a sound cue, you'll have to close whichever door he was pointing to. He of course has penalties that make him silent and make him go in the opposite direction the sign was pointing to. I've actually picked Kaiden multiple times because if you can avoid his annoying penalties, he's an incredibly easy character to deal with, since you can close both doors when you hear his sound cue for about 2 seconds and not have any additional penalties. A tier. The ink monstrosity is always an immediate pick for me. It starts in your office on the ceiling and slowly creeps down. Hold your flashlight on it to force it back up. The best part is it'll basically teleport all the way back up when you flash the light on him, but that's where his penalties come into play. Stubborn will make you have to hold your light on him, removing the loveliness of this character, but overall still isn't too bad. Head Start will make the ink monstrosity start halfway down in your office and won't be able to go all the way back up to the top. Easily the worst penalty this character has. I love this character, always an immediate choice for me. S tier. Robo Popcakes is a character I initially avoided, but eventually grew to really like picking. At random, he'll spawn on your cameras. Not a specific one, he'll just be an overlay. You will have to match up 2 patterns using the arrows on the overlay, and once you do, he'll disappear. If you don't do it in time, you'll die. This character is always one I liked choosing because of how likely I am to pick characters like Bonnie and Chica, because while I stare at them on the cameras, I can deal with RoboCake, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. He has 2 penalties. X = X minus 2 gives you 2 less seconds to align his face, and pop time will only cause time to progress when you complete a Robo Popcakes attack. Overall, even with max penalties, Robo Popcakes isn't a terrible character. A tier. Entity 12 is pure masochism. They'll start in the storage or maintenance and move down your hall. Watch them on the cameras to make it go back. If they get to your office, they'll make you put the mask on for a long ass time. And get this, the 2 penalties they add doesn't make it any better. Aggressive Entity 12 will make you put the mask on for the rest of the fucking night if it gets into your office. And Run Killer will literally start with it inside of your office and it will never leave. Literally fuck that, fuck this character, F tier. Mura is a character I'd highly recommend not picking if you have other characters that don't want you spamming through cameras, because you will have to be doing that a lot with Mira. Mira will be in the kitchen the entire night and will require you to feed her candy. If you don't feed her enough, you'll die. Candy will randomly spawn throughout the cameras, so you'll have to surf through them to click on them. The penalties she adds are brutal. Savory Tooth makes candy spawn less. Small Plate puts a small cap on the amount of candies you can hold at a time. And Sweet and Sour adds sour candies that will remove a candy from your candy counter if you click on them. So if you've been working your muscle memory this whole time and get this penalty, have fun clicking on every single sour one all the time. I'm not a fan of the camera surfing this character brings, and I'd much rather prefer to just ignore picking her. D tier. The Ringmaster is an interesting character. He'll randomly spawn on your cameras. When you see him, you'll have to flip the camera down and greet him in your office. If you switch cameras, he'll make you put the mask on for a long time. Crazed Magician is a penalty that will make clicking off of his camera just instantly kill you. And Masked Magician will make flipping down the camera always make you put the mask on, but for less time than usual. I don't love picking Ringmaster, but I will usually end up choosing him later in a run. B tier. The entity is someone who gives me AIDS. They will randomly spawn on your cameras in 3 locations, except only one of them is actually real. You'll be able to tell because the fakes will be more transparent. Again, for some reason their wiki isn't available, and I never actually chose any of their penalties, so I'm not totally sure what they are. But I hate find them on the camera characters. You guys know that. D tier. No VA is a character I only dealt with once, acting as probably the most nuisance characters of all the nuisance characters. No VA will randomly move around your cameras. You will have to avoid clicking on the camera it's on, or you'll have to put on the mask. On lower AI levels, the camera it's on will be marked with green, making it very easy to see. As the AI goes up, it'll get harder and harder, eventually becoming fucking invisible. And let me tell you, the penalties make it even worse, as I'm sure you could have guessed. Malware makes clicking on No VA's camera kill you instantly. Spamware makes No VA on multiple cameras at a time, and adware creates an adware window on your cameras. If you don't close it fast enough, it will force you to look at No VA's camera. I actually think this character is really cool, and I think that its penalties are actually super interesting. Aside from malware, that one is AIDS. I still don't love picking this character though, because I hate mask characters. So because of this, I'm giving No VA C tier. Moldy is a character that is a really good pick for early game, but late game will easily become a character you will forget about. Whenever you pull down your camera, there's a chance he'll be in your office. If he is, you'll have to hold your light on him for a while, or you'll have to put the mask on. He has 2 penalties. Aggressive Moldy will make you have to shine your light on him for longer, and Crazed Mold will make pulling up the camera while he's in your room instantly kill you. Again, early game, he's amazing, but you will very quickly forget about him once more characters start to get added, so because of this, I'm giving him B tier. Rita Rabbit is thick, but that's not important. What is how she works. She sits on her fat ass in the arcade slowly attempting to leave. All you have to do is hold the flashlight on her to make her go away. Honestly, not that bad of a character if you pair her with other arcade characters, which there is a decent amount of. She has 2 penalties. Aggressive Rita will make you hold your flashlight on her longer, and Cheeky Rabbit will make her move faster the longer you're not looking at her camera. If you know how to stack her with other characters properly, Rita shouldn't be a problem even if you have her penalties. A tier. Coral is another character that I love seeing as an option to pick. Coral will randomly appear at either of your doors with no sound cue, so you'll have to make sure you're paying attention. Simply close the door he's at and he'll knock, letting you know he's left. He has 2 different penalties. Blinding will make you additionally hold the flashlight on him for a while, and making sure will force you to have your camera down while the door is closed in order for him to leave. I love this character, he's super easy to deal with, S tier. Shrimp is another character that just makes me giddy with joy whenever I see her. Shrimp will occasionally spawn some shrimp food in your office on either side. Whichever side it's on is the side you have to close the door of until the shrimp food disappears. The 2 penalties she adds are easily some of the best to deal with. Big Shrimpin' is a penalty that will cause the shrimp food to have the chance to be really big. If it's really big, you just have to close both doors. And Small Shrimpin' gives the food the chance to have the lid off. If it is, all you have to do is close the door to the opposite side of the food. Shrimp is incredibly easy to deal with, she's satisfying to deal with, and she doesn't use the fucking cameras, which I love. Easy S tier. Worm is the next character we have to talk about, and I avoided this guy like the plague. I was very scared of how it was going to work, so I never actually ended up using it. Worm will start in the dining room and go down your right hall and will stay there until you open the door. When you open the door, it'll crawl through your office. Avoid looking at it either by using the mask or looking at the cameras until it leaves. It also has 2 penalties. Snail makes it move across the office slower, and Digger will make Worm add another bar of power usage while it's at your door. Worm just seems like a character that would completely disrupt the flow of the night, and because of that, I'm putting it in D tier. Kyle and Bob are the 2 next assholes I want to talk about, and these guys are weird, and also really shitty and confusing, and I don't fully understand them. Kyle and Bob are 2 separate animatronics, but they work in tandem. Both of them are vent characters. If Kyle, the yellow one, enters your vent, you have to look at him on the camera or he will enter your office and make you use the mask. If Bob is in your vent, you can't look at him on the cameras or he'll enter your office and make you use the mask. The only problem is, I was never able to figure out how to tell which one entered the vent. At first, I thought maybe they'd alternate and I'd have to remember, but then during one run, Kyle attacked twice in a row. So I'm thinking there has to be something I'm misunderstanding about these 2. Of course, they each have 2 penalties. Crazed Sun makes them instantly kill you if they enter your office, and Eclipsed will make one of them invisible while the other is in the vent. I tried to like these guys, but because I'm retarded and can't fully figure them out, they were never for me. D tier. Magi is a pretty interesting character. He will consistently walk back and forth in front of your window. At random, he will make a sound cue letting you know he's about to attack.
Come on, go.
When he does, you have to close the door to the side he's on, leading to you needing to keep track and remember which side he's on at all times. This isn't too bad for someone like me who tries to be able to stay in the office as much as possible. Magi has 3 penalties. Reach around will change the way his sound cues work. If he says
surprise
or
you won't see this one coming,
you will then need to close the door to the opposite side he's on. This can be confusing for obvious reasons. Do It Myself is a penalty that will make Magi attack the opposite door whenever you deal with his puppet the first time. And Invisimagi makes him fucking invisible, as I'm sure you could have guessed. Magi is not my favorite, but I have no problem picking him later in the run when things are getting tight. B tier. Mallory, on the other hand, is torture. She stays in the ticket booth. At random, she will hold up any amount of fingers on one hand. You will then have to flash her with the flashlight that many times. If you flash her too many times or not enough, she will dash at your door 15 times. This is AIDS, and I can't even lie, 15 times? Why so many? Seems a bit overkill, don't you think? But let's talk about her penalties, which she has 3 of. Ambidextrous will make her be able to show you up to 8 fingers. DoorDash will make her charge 20 fucking times instead of 15, and DoorDash EX makes her charge your doors for the entire night. Easily one of the most bullshit characters when you have her penalties on, but if you can avoid choosing them, she's only really ass because her hand is conveniently behind the fucking camera map. D tier. Roy is one of the only camera animatronics I can actually stomach. He starts in the dining room and slowly makes his way to your office. You can lure him to a previous camera by holding your flashlight on them. Since he's a moth, he's attracted to the light. He only has one penalty, Aggressive Roy, which will just make you have to hold the light for longer to get him to move. Overall, very solid character, and not too annoying to handle until his AI value gets really high. A tier. Silly is kinda silly. Fuck, editor, cut that out. Silly is my favorite vent animatronic. He moves around the cameras, who gives a fuck? Eventually, he'll enter one of your vents. When he does, all you have to do is hold the flashlight on him before he enters your office and eats your butt. He also only has one penalty, Aggressive Silly, which makes you hold the flashlight on him for longer. Very simple character, he makes sound cues, I like sound cues, S tier. Next up, we've got Bop. She's an interesting, ADHD-riddled little fuck. When you pull down the camera, there's a chance she'll be standing in your window. She will then dash towards either of your doors. Simply close that door before she gets to it. She has 3 penalties. Layered Square will make Bop charge your doors multiple times. Bop Spawn will cause Bop to be able to spawn at your window even if the camera is down, and Force Down will make Bop force your camera down if it is up. A character that requires quick reaction time, and when more characters get added can be easily missed. E tier. Venus is a fucking plant. Oh, you want to know what they do? Sure, that's fair enough. Venus will sit in the kitchen the entire night like your mom in the middle of the night looking for more food even though she ate 65% of dinner that night. Throughout the night, bunnies will spawn in your room and you'll have to click on them to collect them. You then feed these bunnies to Venus in the kitchen camera. Very fucked up, Venus. These bunnies are cute. Venus has a hefty 4 different penalties, actually being one of the highest in the game. Wabbit hunting will make the bunnies in your office jump around, making them harder to click. Except they're still not hard to click, so it's not that bad. Depopulation will make the bunnies spawn less frequently. Wanderer will make Venus randomly move around your cameras instead of camping the kitchen. And Mako will add Venus's friend Mako into your office. If you click on him, you'll die. Venus is very fun to play with. Their mechanic is satisfying, clicking on the bunnies is fun, and even most of their penalties aren't too bad. S tier. Cyrex is the next character we need to talk about, and I absolutely hate her. She starts in the ticket booth and slowly makes her way to your office. Before she gets to your office, you'll have to go to the ticket booth camera and call her to your office manually and then put the mask on. If she gets to your office by herself, I'm assuming you can guess what happens. And if you couldn't have already guessed, her penalties aren't much better. Rising aggression makes her make you put the mask on longer the longer you take to call her to your office. And call tracker will randomize the camera the call button is on every time you use it. This character is Torment. This character is Anguish, F tier. Next we have Ellie, another character so potently AIDS I fear even talking about her. Her goal is to chew the wires in the storage room to cut your power. You will have to watch for her in either hall. When she's in one, you must make sure the door on that side is open and shake a box of snacks on that side of the office to lure her inside of the office. She will leave shortly thereafter. If your office door isn't open when you lure her, she will bang on the door and drain your power. She also has 3 penalties if this didn't already sound terrible enough. Shaker will force you to shake the bag of treats longer. Power Chomper will make Ellie drain more power when she bangs on your door, and Wind Skip will make her able to teleport from one hall to another without ever appearing in your window like she usually does. I don't think I have to explain why this character is awful to deal with. The rules that go along with her are far more complicated than any other character, F tier. The next character we have to begrudgingly talk about is Ammo. Ammo starts in the dining room and will slowly wander to your right door. Each camera he travels through will have an eject button with 2 power. Before Ammo reaches your office, you must press the eject button on any camera that has the eject power, which will then send him back to the dining room. Once a camera is out of power, there's no way to get it back. If this wasn't terrible sounding enough, you haven't even heard of his 3 penalties yet. Quiet Ammo will remove his sound cue when he moves. Single Take only allows each room to have 1 eject power instead of 2, and Demon adds Ammo's friend, Demon, who will randomly move around the ejectable cameras. If you eject a camera Demon is on, you will die. I hate this character. Dealing with him can be bad on higher AI values, but since he's nowhere near as bad as some of the other characters in this game, I'm putting him in D tier. And here we are, 29 pages into my script later, and we can talk about the final animatronic in this game. Swagman. Swagman has a pretty interesting mechanic I've actually never seen before. He will randomly wander around the cameras. You will have to stare at him to fill his swag meter up. If it goes all the way down, he will make you put the mask on for a long ass time. However, this mechanic isn't as bad as I usually say it is, because you can easily tell which camera Swagman is on because he lights it up. So, what about his 3 penalties? Well, Swagalicious makes him move from camera to camera faster, which can get annoying. Endless Swag will force you to put the mask on for the rest of the night if Swagman gets in, and Eye on the Swag will make Swagman's meter go up slower than usual. Overall, not a bad character, and no penalty that removes the ability to see what camera he's on. C tier. And there we go! That's every single character in Too Many Nights. I love how many there are. It leads to such a new and interesting experience every time you play, and I love it. But now I'd like to mention the general penalties that aren't specific to any character, as there are a few of those as well. Generally, from what I've noticed, it's much smarter to pick the general penalties over the character penalties, as it will be much more likely that they will be easier to deal with. Overtime will make each hour of the night last 2 seconds longer, and you can actually have 2 overtime penalties active at a time. Less power will, as the name suggests, make you start each night with less power, 10% to be exact, and you can have 3 of these penalties. Less room is a penalty that will give you 1 less option when selecting animatronics, and you can have 2 of them. All-Star will make the next enemy you add start at max AI value. Stranger Danger will add a random character you don't already have at a very low AI value, and Midnight Motivation will make all characters' AI value increase at 3 AM. All-Star, Stranger Danger, and Midnight Motivation are probably going to be penalties you always want to avoid, but I personally don't think the other characters are that bad. Next up, I'd like to talk about the characters that you can unlock to play as, because if you remember, each character has different pros and cons for you to choose from. To start, each character has a different amount of lives they'll start you with. Getting jump scared by an animatronic will cause you to lose one of these lives, giving you multiple opportunities if you mess up. And of course, I'll be putting these guys on a tier list as well. The first character you will have by default is Michael. He gives you 3 hearts and has no abilities. He's as basic can get, really. D tier. You also, by default, have 3 other much more interesting characters. The first being Elizabeth. She gives you 4 hearts and forces the enemies to have their AI values increase slower. But as a con, you'll receive half the amount of coins you'd usually get. The low AI value honestly makes her pretty valuable, but of course, never being able to buy anything is never fun. C tier. Evan is the next auto-unlocked character. He gives you 3 hearts, makes all enemies start on a higher AI value, but to compensate, nets you 1.5x more coins, which will be nice for when we talk about shops later in the video. High AI values are never super great, especially if you're dogshit at FNAF games like I am, but overall he is nowhere near the worst character to choose. C tier. Cassidy is the last character you'll unlock by default. She only gives you 1 heart and makes every single enemy start at maximum aggression, and forces you to pick a penalty every single night. She also will never allow you to see shops. Instead, you can use your money to remove penalties in animatronics. I don't care that you can remove things. Having to pick a penalty every night whilst also only having 1 heart is pure AIDS. F tier. Henry is the first character on the list to unlock. However, you can unlock them in pretty much any order you want. Henry is unlocked by beating at least 1 night while using Michael, Elizabeth, Evan, and Cassidy. Something that should be very easy to pull off. He gives you 3 hearts and gives you way more options when picking enemies, penalties, and shop items. However, you will be forced to pick more enemies and more penalties. The last thing you're going to want to do is give yourself more threats. So even though your option pool is bigger, the cons outweigh the pros here a lot. D tier. Gabriel can be unlocked by having 2 penalties active in a run that affect Freddy. He gives you 3 hearts, gives you a guaranteed shop every single night. But as a downside, each character comes with a few of their penalties already added. I'm sure you know what I'm going to say, and a lot of character-specific penalties are horrific. Sure, you may never have to pick a penalty after beating a night, but I really don't care about that as much as getting butt-fucked by character penalties. F tier. Jeremy can be unlocked by getting a power outage on night 3 and beyond and still surviving the night. Generally one of the harder characters to unlock. He gives you 5 hearts, You start the run with 500% power instead of 100%. The nights are shorter than usual, but as a downside, your power carries over from night to night. But don't let that fool you. 500% power is a lot of fucking power, and if you're good at enemy building, you can easily make that last a long time. And 5 hearts is a fuck ton. Easy A tier character. Susie will be unlocked if you die to Chica twice in a single night and then beat that night. She gives 3 hearts. Each enemy starts at max AI value, but you gain 1 life after you beat a knight. Now, at first glance, this may sound really bad, but I actually had my second best run ever using Susie, and it's 100% because of that life gain. With characters always on max difficulty, there's no way for them to get harder, so you'll get used to them at their hardest difficulty pretty quickly. Sure, she's not the best, but she definitely isn't as bad as she sounds. B tier. Fritz is unlocked by having 100 or more coins at one time in a single run. He gives you 2 hearts, and your lives are attached to the number of coins you have. To be specific, for every 50 coins you have, that equals 1 heart. Overall, this character is more confusing than it will ever be useful, actively discouraging you from ever buying anything. You're better off just using Michael, as there's no real downside. D tier. Fitzgerald is unlocked by beating Night 5 in a run whilst only picking the leftmost enemies and penalties. I actually struggled a bit unlocking this character, so what does he do? Well, you start with 3 hearts, and each enemy and penalty are randomized each night, meaning the 3 enemies you pick on night 1 will be different on night 2, and you can also pay to reroll, as well as getting a shop every single night. This character really just serves as what I'm going to call a challenge character. You would never actually want to bring this character into a legitimate run, and because of that, I'm giving him an F tier. Sally is easily the most unique character out of all of the normal ones, and I'll explain what normal means in a bit. You unlock her by beating a knight with both Percy Poodle and Rowan Rat on max AI values. Sally introduces a brand new mechanic, that being the pup pal from Playtime with Percy. It works in the exact same way as in that game, and the best part, your progress on the night is tied to it. No more waiting out the night. You will have to complete the games on the pup pal for the night to end. Again, this goes to serve as more of a challenge character than anything else, as playing Sally will by default make the game much, much harder. And because of this, I'm giving her F tier. Again, not because she's not a fun character, but because if you're trying to get far in a run, she's not the character for you. And finally, we have the man himself, Scott Cawthon, who is unlocked by completing Night 3 with every other character in the game. And of course, since he's the final character, he has the most interesting mechanic. He himself doesn't have any abilities, instead letting you pick the pros and cons from every other character in the game, allowing you to mix and match your favorite pieces from other characters. You don't need me to tell you that Scott is a broken character. I'm pretty sure you can figure that out. Easy S tier. And boom, that's every single playable character in Too Many Nights. So now we can start talking about the items that can be bought in the shop. I won't be going over each and every one, since there are literally a fuck ton to talk about, and this video is already long enough. But I do want to talk about some of the best ones to look out for. Early Out is an item that will make each night 2 seconds shorter. More Power will start each night with 10% more power. More Room will give you more options when picking animatronics. The Empress will give you 1 life and give you more options when picking animatronics. The Emperor will decrease every animatronic's AI value by 2. The Chariot will have you start each night with 15% more power. The Hanged Man will remove 2 random penalties you have activated. Death removes a random enemy. The Moon makes each hour 3 seconds shorter. Fritz Children's Bible will make items you can't afford never show up in shops, and Sparked will make sparks appear randomly on cameras, and touching them will increase your power. Those are all of the yummy mashed potatoes in my belly items that I like to look out for in the shop. Again, there are a lot more, but I think it would just be really boring to go over all of them. But there you go. That's everything you need to know, and as far as I'm aware, everything that Too Many Nights has to offer. I would highly recommend you give this game a try. It is some of the most fun I've ever had since starting this channel, and I actually plan on doing some Too Many Nights streams here on this channel. If that's something you're interested, let me know. Also, if you were interested, Too Many Nights is actually getting a version 2.1, and it's being worked on as I'm writing this. I'm super excited to see what it has to offer once it's fully released. This game is so incredibly unique and combines two of my favorite game genres of all time into one amazing game. The art style is unique, the community input is fantastic, and of course, the gameplay and gameplay loop are impeccable.
Have you ever played a game that was so good you wanted to play it again? Have you ever found a game dev whose games were so finely crafted you wanted to play every one they've ever made? Now, here's a crazy question. Have you ever played a game that was so utterly disappointing, bad, and a waste of time that you'd honestly, and I do mean honestly, would rather play Garten of Banban? Well, I have. I just did actually, and I need to talk about it. I literally cannot help myself, and I bet you know the game I'm talking about, and maybe you even like it. This video is being made to explain why you shouldn't. The game I'll be talking about today is Five Nights at Candy's 2. You might be asking, why are you covering the second game in a series when you haven't even made a video about the first one? Well, I'll be honest with you, the first one is criminally mediocre at best, but if you guys want, I'll cover that one too. I just remembered this second game and remembered how unmemorable it was. So let's dive right into the most boring and mind-numbing Five Nights at Freddy's game ever made. Five Nights at Candy's 2 begins with us getting a text message from someone. That someone is not named, but we're told that we lost a bet, and because of that, we'll have to spend 5 nights in an abandoned factory again. Note that this person says, again, which would lead one to believe that we've had to spend 5 nights here before. And let me tell you, when there are killer animatronics somewhere, you survive 5 nights there, and then agree to a bet where the loser has to go there again, I guarantee you're not taking that bet and you're not going there again. So I have a theory about our player. They're brain dead. That has to be it, because no one else on Earth would be that stupid. Anyways, then we get slingshotted into the first night, and that means I'm plagued with the burden of telling you about the worst part of this game: playing the game. Instead of being in an office, we're in the middle of a hallway. Why? Because we're the king of making bad decisions. There are several rooms with only one entrance, but we instead choose to sit in the one room in the building that has about 6 fucking entrances, so our chances of living are as small as possible. It's also a good idea to mention that this hallway we're in is darker than the abyss, so seeing is impossible, but don't worry. We came prepared with the worst possible form of light that we could possibly think of. An old-ass camera that has a flash. Again, remember, we've been here before, for 5 nights, and we came back with a terrible form of lighting even knowing how fucking dark it is. Brain dead. I will continue to emphasize this. Brain dead. Do we have a camera system? I hear you asking. Of course we do. Is it good? I hear you asking. Not even a little bit. Looking at the camera, you'll see a bunch of phone symbols. For some reason, almost every room in this building has a phone in it. Now remember that this building is supposed to be a factory. Why would there be a phone in every room in a factory? Have you ever worked in a factory? Let me tell you, factories are some of the loudest buildings on Earth. I would say it'd probably be quieter to work at a nuclear testing ground than it would be to work in a factory. On top of that, because of how loud factories are, most will have you wearing earplugs, so I guarantee you that nobody who's working in this factory would ever in a billion years be able to hear any of these phones ringing. But let's stop being literal and talk about why they're here. Similar to Five Nights at Freddy's 2, there are no doors. So how do you keep the animatronics from fingering your butthole? Well, we use the phones to lure them around the building, just like the Balloon Boy laugh from Five Nights at Freddy's 3. The key difference between this system and the system from FNAF 3 is, where the laughing system from FNAF 3 is good, the phone system from Five Nights at Candy's 2 fucking isn't. Let me explain. So in FNAF 3, you can use the Balloon Boy laugh in whatever room you want, and Springtrap will move to that room as long as he's in a room that is adjacent to it. Makes sense. In Five Nights at Candy's 2, you can use the phone in whatever room you want, but animatronics will only move to it if they're in the main hall where you are, and the reason given is, the only room that they can hear the phone in is the main hall. Please, tell me how that makes any sense at all. Even if an animatronic is directly next to the room you use the phone in, they can't fucking hear it. But if they're in the main hallway and you use a phone in the furthest possible corner of the room 847 meters away, they'll jump on that shit. That makes no sense. Now you might be wondering, what happens when they get to the room of the phone you rang? Good question. They fucking disable it. Great. Now I have a question. Why are they going after the phone? It's a phone. Who cares? In Five Nights at Freddy's 3, the reason Springtrap went after the Balloon Boy call was because it sounded like a child, and Springtrap had pedophobia, unlike Dr. Disrespect. But this is just a phone. What reason do the animatronics have to attack this phone? I actually have a theory about that. Because the phone call ring is the most annoying sound on the face of the planet. Don't believe me? This is what it sounds like. Isn't that the worst? Get ready to hear that for your whole playthrough, because it's the main fucking mechanic of the goddamn game. I still haven't even mentioned what happens on night 1. So to start, there's no phone calls. Thank God. If I had to hear the phone ring even one additional time, I think I'd rip an infant in half. And the only animatronic that's active on night 1 is Cindy. And let me tell you, she's got hips like Judy Hopps, I'm not even gonna lie to you. Cindy is pretty boring overall. She just moves around. Call phones and make her move, mazel tov. But let me tell you, she moves at about Mach 20. You'll call a phone, causing her to leave the hall, and within about 10 seconds, she's already back into the hallway again. So you get to hear the oh so good sound of the phone again and again and again. I love life. Just kidding. No, I don't. This game does something pretty interesting. Once you beat a night, you'll get a minigame. Night 1's minigame has you play as Chester the chimpanzee. In it, you walk around what I assume is the building from the first game. You walk down into the office, grab a key, and unlock what I'm guessing is a back room. However, we don't get to see what's inside before the minigame ends. Cool, I guess. Anyways, let's move on to Night 2. Night 2 introduces a new animatronic, that being Chester. Remember him? You should. I just talked about him quite literally about 15 seconds ago, so I hope you would. Chester has a mechanic more unique than Cindy's, so that's good at least. Chester will start going quite literally apeshit on one of the vents in a random room. Can you guess how to deal with him? Can you? I'll wait. Ding ding ding! We have a winner! You fucking use the fucking phones to fucking scare the fucker away. God, fuck, I can't stand the phones. I'm gonna shart and then I'm gonna piss on it. Fuck, I'm sorry, I need to relax. I've been seeing a psychiatrist and he says we're making great progress. However, there was this one time his phone rang during a meeting and I ripped the couch in half. So, that set us back a little bit. Anyways, once you use the phone, Chester will run away like a bitch. If you don't use the phone fast enough, he'll climb through the vents and kill you. Very easy mechanic overall, but when mixed with the fact that when a phone is being called, you can't call another one, that's when it starts to get hard. Because you'll send Cindy to another room, and then directly after, Chester will start pounding on a vent in another room. Fuck me. Now I have to wait 30 seconds to use a phone again, and in that time, Chester has already tied me up, looking at me up and down and shit. But once we get through Night 2, we can move on to the post-Night 2 minigame. In this minigame, we play as the Penguin. I looked up his name, and his name is just the Penguin. Very creative, guys, great work. In this minigame, we're tasked with picking up the remains of Chester and stuffing them into a box. Let's imagine that all of these animatronics are friends for a second, okay? That's super fucked up. Yeah, go pick up your best friend that's been ripped into fucking pieces and just throw him in a box. No funeral, no burial, just toss him in there. I feel bad for the Penguin. First he's got no name, and now he's on crime scene cleanup. Trying our best not to think about it, we move on to Night 3. Night 3 introduces two new animatronics, Candy and the Penguin. Candy is boring as fuck, literally just doing the exact same thing that Cindy does, which makes you wonder, what was even the point? The Penguin, however, does do something pretty interesting. The Penguin can randomly appear on any camera. If you look at him for too long, he will disable your cameras for a while, making you unable to look at them, retroactively making it impossible to call the phones, which is arguably a good thing, because I'd rather put a gun in my mouth than listen to the phone ring again. Now, I'm gonna pause real quick and ask you guys, does this mechanic sound a little familiar to you? Well, that's because it's quite literally just Balloon Boy's mechanic from Five Nights at Freddy's 3, with borderline zero differences. Ah yes, originality, how uncommon you are. But hey, it is better than Candy, to be fair, because the frequency in which I have to repeat myself in this script is making my ears ring. Ring. Hold the fucking phone over. Post night 3 minigame time. Aren't you excited? You better be excited. In this minigame, we play as Blank. Our task here is to pick up 4 drawings. I would say that's irrelevant, but if you spend as much time as I do looking at and studying FNAF games, you'd know that Blank's purpose is to literally be drawn on by children, so this actually makes a little bit of sense. 3 of the drawings don't really mean dick, but there is one drawing I'd like to draw your attention to, only because it's the only thing in this game that I think is unsettling. A drawing of a sad kid with the text, "Where's Chester?" It's just unsettling because we know what happened to Chester, but this kid doesn't. It's a very small detail, but I have to do my best to find something positive in this dumpster fire of a game. After we collect all 4 drawings, it's time to move on to Night 4. Night 4 literally introduces no new animatronics. So we're just going to talk about the post-Night 4 minigame. I'm going to be honest with you guys because we're friends, pals, homies, some might even say buds. This minigame has no fucking purpose existing. You can tell that the dev just thought, oh fuck, I can't think of another minigame with substance, and then made this minigame. In this minigame you play as Cindy, and your task is to walk down to the office, grab Candy's tie, and give it to him. That's it. You know, I can tell that this script is going to be shorter than I usually like them to be already, but when you give me 0 content to work with, game, it makes it significantly more difficult to lengthen the script out so that the viewers have more fucking content. But I guess I'll just go fuck myself then, and we'll move on to Night 5. Night 5, thankfully, introduces a new animatronic for me to complain about, Blank. Technically, Blank can come in Night 4, it's just super unlikely, but we're not going to talk about that. Can you guys guess what Blank does? If you guessed the exact same fucking thing that Candy and Cindy do, you're fucking right. Why even try to make a mechanic that's interesting when you could just Control-C, Control-V code, right? That's so awesome. But as far as I can tell, Blank does at least do something different from Candy and Cindy. If you call the phone that's in the room he's in, he will disable it almost instantly, and that's about all that's different. Boring ass, dumbass, bitch, robot bitch. You know, I really honestly wish I had more to talk about when it came to this game, but of course, it's a disappointment of a game, so I really don't. But we can talk about the post-Night 5 minigame. The post-Night 5 minigame actually has a lot of substance to it, so I thankfully actually have something to talk about. In this minigame, you play as Candy, and your goal is pretty unclear. As you wander around the building, you stumble into a room where you see police officers guarding the doors, with police lights flashing on the outside of the building. As you walk into the office, you see the corpse of what appears to be another police officer, and deep laughing can begin to be heard. As you continue to walk around the building, you'll notice that the door that Chester unlocked in the first minigame is now open. As you go to walk up to the door, 3 police officers bust the door down and tase the fuck out of Candy's plump ass. Isn't it crazy that this minigame has been more fun than the entirety of the rest of the game combined? God, you know, this should have been the game with absolutely nothing else, and I probably would have had more nice things to say about it. But let's move on to Night 6, because it's FNAF, so of course the title of the game is a lie. Night 6 removes every single animatronic we've seen so far, but adds 2 new ones, the rat and the cat. I'm sorry, did I say adds? I meant replacements, because these 2 animatronics literally add nothing new to the game. Both characters act the same way Candy and Cindy do, but the cat also has Chester's ability to pound on the vent, and the rat has the penguin's ability of forcing your cameras to reboot if you look at him for too long. Is this night good? Literally no. Is it unique? Literally no. Did I have a good time playing it? Literally no. Did I have a good time playing this game at all? Literally no. Am I having a good time writing this script? Kinda, I guess. There's only so much you can write about when the dev of the game shits in their hand and gives it to you with a sticky note attached that reads Five Nights at Candy's 2. But whatever. Post-Night 6 minigame time, I suppose. The Post-Night 6 minigame also has a lot to talk about. hilariously more to talk about than the actual base game. This minigame starts with us playing as Old Candy, as we follow a Shadow Candy around the building. He leads us to an open door with a worker inside. As we approach this worker, he turns around and is rightfully frightened and tases the fuck out of us. Usually that's where these minigames would end, but we actually get to continue. Next, we're back in the body of Blank, with the task of picking up a bunch of pictures again, with the final picture being a drawing of Shadow Candy, and as the picture leaves our screen, we see Shadow Candy behind us and then he clanks Blank's cheeks. Bars. However, we're still not done playing this minigame. Next, we're back playing as Old Candy and again are tasked with following Shadow Candy around the building. We walk past a man in a black vest who looks very upset, and Shadow Candy leads us to the office where we find a crying child. As we walk up to the crying child, they get up and stop crying and prance out of the room all happy and shit. Continuing to follow Shadow Candy, he leads us back to the man in the black vest we saw earlier to find him grabbing the child we found by the head, based, and the child is crying. We walk up to the man and presumably bust it down freaky style with him and split him in half like a log. And that's the end of this minigame. I honestly appreciate this game doing something that at least feels like progress and understanding. However, that's where my critiques end for this game, because that's the fucking end of the game. Do you feel fucked? I feel fucked. This game just bent me over and fucked me. I spent a few hours playing this game, and what do I get? I get fucked in the ass by Five Nights at Candy's 2. No lube, raw, in the ass, fucked. I am not even remotely satisfied with this game. It did nothing good at all to make me appreciate it. Sure, it has its two interesting moments in the final two minigames, and sure, it has the secret animatronic that's kind of a baddie, but that's not even close enough to make me like it. Even looking at the time at which it came out, coming off the back of Five Nights at Candy's, one of the best FNAF fan games at that time, it still wasn't even good. It was just a shitty Five Nights at Freddy's 3 with a boring ass gameplay loop. Now, I'm not a fan of Five Nights at Freddy's 3 either. I think overall it's a pretty bad game, but it was original. This dog shit did what that dog shit did, but even more dog shit. I would rather put a toothpick under my toenail and kick a wall. I would rather play Moozy again. I would rather peel my own skin off and pour salt on it. I would rather watch old Markiplier and try not to cringe at how eccentric he was. This game had so much it could have done, and for some reason it just didn't. It had so many animatronics to work with, which could open the door to so many unique mechanics, but instead it chose to have all of them do the same thing, which just makes for an experience that is so catastrophically boring. The gameplay felt useless, the minigames felt useless, and the fucking phone call makes me want to strangle a baby deer. But let me know what you think. Do you think this game is actually a masterpiece, or have you realized that you were blinded by nostalgia? I'm super interested to see what you guys have to think. In the last video, I asked you guys if you thought Five Nights at Freddy's Secret of the Mimic was going to be good or not, and my favorite comment was this one by Ryko Janes. They said that they thought the game was going to be dog shit, and sadly, I agree with that. I have no trust in Steelwool after seeing what they did with Security Breach. Those games were franchise ruining, and there's literally no arguing that. I don't have high hopes, but in the back of my mind, I do hope they prove me wrong. The question of this video is, do you think Five Nights at Candy's 4 will come out? And if it does, do you think it'll be any good, and why? Also, I have a super cool announcement to make. Recently, I've released my first game, Zach's Game. It's a super fun survival horror game about playing a card game against a serial killer. I'll have a link to it in the description below. I think you guys will really enjoy it. It's really fun and definitely worth your time. With the question of the video being asked, I've been Dexter, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya!